So yeah, I'm definitely more tan than you are.
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely on the pale end. I go for the pale look. I like it now. I'm very I borrow from Japanese culture that way.
Hey, there you go. Right?
So
And the Melanitans of the world don't agree with you.
yeah, so when I went to Tokyo like 3 years ago, it's one of my favorite cities. I just love the culture. I love how orderly it is. The people are like so purposeful. It's clean. It's organized, and everyone walks under an umbrella. And I said, "This is my place." I'm like, and I'm walking under an umbrella. Like, let me see. I'll show you. I have in my. I can't believe I'm showing a Louis Vuitton bag. It's so absurd, but don't judge me. But anyways, it's high quality. But this is a sun umbrella, so this fits with me in a little case if I go somewhere. Just because my skin is so sensitive to the light, and I've just given up on tanning because I'll get sunspots or I'll age my skin. So.
I didn't know sun umbrellas were a thing. I didn't know they did that over there. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's like if you look at like Korean shows, like they became very popular. I don't know how much TV you watch. I don't watch them, but I had this business partner. He was always like K dramas, and he's like their skin is unbelievable. So all of his skincare product is coming out of Korea, like because they have the best skin, but they all watch their sun exposure. And I've said this for years. I know you have to get sun. It's very important. But I think this is the thing. Misinterpreting the data or the message, that does not mean go outside and roast at noon and just because it literally melts your DNA. I mean, for someone like me who doesn't have a lot of protection, it's mornings and as the sun's going down, like those are my two times. And then if you're outside, under maybe a little bit of shade, you still have the photons bouncing everywhere. They're getting in, so I do love outdoor exposure, but I don't like being hit with rays really hard because I just immediately start burning. So that umbrella has an SPF 50. So anyways, I mean, I'll send you the link if you want to pass it along.
My wife and kids, they all took after her, those Irish genes, right? Like they are all fair skinned, but luckily there's enough of my Italian DNA and genetics in there to where the kids have never gotten a sunburn. We've taken time to build their solar callus and things like that, but Lindsay's still like, she's outside for more than 2.5 hours. I'm talking like Pennsylvania sun, which is not like Florida sun. That's completely different.
Yeah.
We have to watch her when we go to Disney and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's you want to get the most sun exposure you can get with your daily schedule and with what your actual skin will allow. If you're burning and actually plastering DNA, not a good amount. Like I could be outside all day and I'll just absorb it. I never burn. But then, like you said, under the tree, it's going to actually reflect off the green. You're going to get more infrared, but also more UV. You're just going to absorb more and then burn even faster. So I agree. We started talking about that before we recorded, right? Where it's the interpretation or it's the looking at what's been not bastardized, but what's been talked about for decades and what kind of comes in and out of fad and phase. And sun exposure is a good one,
Yeah. It's so true. It's. I mentioned this before we got on, like being able to see the trees from the forest and the interpretation and your perspective and your history and how long you've been doing this stuff. I think really can separate like the data or the protocol or the information, the science, and then how to effectively use that without there being some sort of weird distortion on it where you're inferring or you have some cognitive bias about it or something like that. You got to appreciate who you are and you don't see that so much with diet. I always tell people, if you want to see the mark of a real charlatan, if they tell you to eat exactly like them. And it's like, that's absurd. Like, this is how I eat. This is exactly how you should eat. It's like, that's absurd. I'm completely different, you know. And, you know, I've thought a lot about this stuff, as I'm sure you have. And, you know, I remember when that whole Blue Zones thing came out. And at first I was like, well, it's so obvious. I mean, come on. You have these homogenous societies that for some reason are living a long time. They have these qualities about their lifestyle. And it's very easy to understand, well, if you walk a lot, or you have movement, or you garden, or you eat really good food, or you get outdoor exposure, or you have purpose and social, like, we know those affect you. But I thought, you know, what it seems like no one's talking about is that, you know, you have these civilizations, these homogenous societies that have been adapted to that environment for many generations. So they're actually living where their genetics are the most adapted. And I thought, no one's talking about this. And so, like, if you take someone from Jamaica and you put them in London, do you think they're going to have a vitamin D deficiency? Probably, right? Because you've displaced them, right? They are more genetically adapted for Jamaica. They're more genetically adapted for the food there, the environment. And it, like, when I started thinking about all this stuff, and I kind of shunned a little bit of this Blue Zone stuff, because I said, But then we vacation in Italy every year for 2 weeks. And I just step away from all my protocols, except for stuff that maybe is like if you got to take testosterone, like, you know, it's not like, you know, that stuff is going to go down. Like, there's like just a small handful of things that are like the everyday essentials, or like, you know, but I step away from all the stuff. And we both, you know, come back fitter, leaner. I'm certain our VO2 max is better, happier. Like, we look 10 years younger at the photos at the end than we do at the beginning. And I thought, wow, there's really something to this environment. There's really something to being somewhere that is just conducive to a healthy lifestyle, or a, you know, health. And it made me start appreciating, like, okay, and I'm going off here, so just,
that's the point of this episode.
Yeah. So, but, you know, then I started like reflecting on my athletic career, and I thought, okay, like, you have these different modes you're in. Total off season. Then you have, I'm getting ready for competition, so I'm getting into shape. Then you have, I'm in phenomenal shape. And then you have the post celebratory, like, I won, or, you know, phase where you're restructuring and replanning, going back into, I call it monk mode, where you're getting back into like learning and, you know, like really diving in, and back into shape, and I thought, what environments could maybe exist in the world, because I love to travel, that would be conducive, because I notice I still do that in my normal life. Where am I at in my phases? And that might be an annual thing. It might be an every 4-year thing. It might be once every, you know, it might be a 10-year cycle. And what environments are really conducive to me excelling without having to lean on massive protocols and all that? Just the environment sets the stage for me. So I'm not exactly sure how I got down this rabbit hole, but it goes to show you that there's so many ways to do things, including, you know, the environment outside of just protocols or compounds, and really having that awareness of can help guide you to sort of say, no, I can, you know, instead of going on a vacation and coming back out of shape and feeling like garbage, I can come back actually like as if I excelled in my protocol. You know what I mean?
Oh, completely agreed. And it's funny. And this is just perfect cosmic timing, because I have something that just came in yesterday that I have to finish putting up this morning. It's just powdered shungite, right? So shout out to Cosmic Shungite, just powdered shungite, right? So if you look at shungite, the piezoelectric activity of it allows you to just transfer electrons easier. So normally you use it to block like non-coherent EMF, but I've used it with some beekeepers to help get better yields. We've used it in like some zoo scenarios, like a couple different ways to just allow cells of biology to heal faster. So what I've done over, well, we just moved in here like a year and a half ago, but I've slowly been trying to change the level of consciousness of our property. And so you can do that by putting different minerals, crystals, different, rocks back into our environment that are more conducive to change our biology. Because when we moved into this house, I was like, okay, I can't be in the perfect optimal environment, so I'm just going to make it, right? Because Pennsylvania, we got 7 months of sun, and the rest is cold, rainy, everything like that. So what can I do to make it the most conducive environment for me, my kids, and everything? And I thought, okay, not just for us, but then I'm thinking like future generations and even everyone in the neighborhood. And so I'll get, and this is a new source for powdered shungite. It's so hard to find powdered shungite. I will just sprinkle this all on our grass. It'll slowly leach in and become part of that actual property. I'll do it throughout the neighborhood. People don't know this, by the way. So if you see me like putting black powder on things, like I'll do it in people's yards and like just all around, because it's I want this, not just me. I don't just want to thrive with my family. I want everyone around me to thrive. And so I've done this since we moved in, got this new source, which I think I'll probably keep using him from now on. But you talked about, the environment and being able to maybe move there. And then also, I think a lot of people don't realize you could just make it yourself with all the technologies we have. Like you said, beyond the supplements and the protocols, like that environment, it's so massive. And something as simple as that, and shungite has like 100 plus years of research on it. It's been around for freaking ever. It's one of the coolest little things you can do to start raising your own consciousness of your property right now.
Yeah, I love that, and of course, you're the guy out there in the yard sprinkling that stuff. That's awesome. I love it. If you were my neighbor, I would just be like, I love this guy, But
I usually do that weird stuff like that. I'll take my shirt off. So I figured no one's looking at like the black powder I'm sprinkling. Like, oh, look at those traps, or like distract them. It's not as weird, or maybe it's more weird.
And you're out there posing while you're doing it. That's great. I love it. But it's so true. The environment is everything. And I go through these. I tend to be somebody who, like you, rabbit holes. I get into stuff, and I'm into 3 big fields. I'm into longevity, I'm into AI, and I'm into investing. And so there are times where I've traveled my whole life. I've been a world traveler since I was 13. I was competing internationally. And for me, I start feeling like my world is just shrinking if I get up and I work, because I work from home. I go to the gym, even though I love my gym, and let's take my life, like it all just starts to feel small. And I'll just get on an airplane and I'll just go somewhere. I was literally just in Singapore because I always wanted to check out this place, and for 20 years I've always seemed to kind of miss it on my way to Asia. And man, it just, that city has this they've infused this futuristic city with nature. So nature is intertwined with everything. And again, it's very kind of has a, I'm not going to say Japanese, but someone might take offense to that. They're from Singapore, but it's very orderly and clean. I mean, you can't even chew gum. I mean, it's very, but yet it's service. Everything is great. And so I'll just go these places sometimes and reset for a week or 9 days. And it just expands my mind because I see how different people are living, how they are going about their days, how things are structured different, how different pattern recognition, because like as an investor, it really helps to see patterns and spot like when something, there's asymmetrical opportunities, meaning that the return is way higher than the risk, because maybe people are like, oh, we're running out of silver in the world. It's like, that's a money-making opportunity. And so just to look at the world and see it, and what's so cool is you can't divorce yourself of your thoughts or your issues or the things you're chewing on. But if you displace yourself in a totally new environment, you can't deny them and just say it's this environment where I'm normally at. You have to, it allows you to address things from a whole new perspective, so that when you go back home, like, I just feel so much more potent because I've seen things from a different perspective. So, it's just very interesting that there's so many ways, because we talk about, I know we're going to get into protocol stuff and like compounds, and you're kind of already leaning into that, but then there's the environment, but then there's the mindset. There's this quantum medicine that exists inside your brain that we don't seem to talk about enough. And I'll never forget it. I was trying to make my last Olympic team, and I had 2 surgeries. It's a year and a half before the trials in before 2004, and I'm laying in an MRI machine for the 3rd time, and for a wrist injury. And I thought to myself, maybe this whole gymnastics thing is like a disease. Maybe this is like a personal problem that I want this so bad that I'm willing to sacrifice my own body. And then I was like, no. And I literally like separated myself from, there's like 2 yous. There's you and then there's you. And I spoke to myself and I said, I'm not quitting. I am retiring. So you have to figure it out. That's what's going to happen. This isn't going to be like, oh, Steve's going to give up and we'll quit. I am retiring after the 04 Olympics. So figure it out. And there was probably an some sort of bad word thrown in there too. I would effing figure it out, I swear something happened. I walked out of that MRI machine. I didn't need surgery. And by the time I was 30 as a gymnast for the Olympics, I was in the best shape of my life again. And I went through that phase. I couldn't do anything. I was in so much pain. My body was literally, I would go to get on the pommel horse and my body would balk. It wouldn't send the signal to go. It said, I'm done. Like, we're not doing, I couldn't do anything, like nothing. I couldn't do the most basic gymnastics moves because my body was in so much pain globally. But after that conversation, it's like the message just something happened. No exosomes, no peptides. This happened. And so I always try to go, where is it in here that I can also, that I'm not thinking the right thoughts, or I'm not feeling the right stuff, and I think setting your environment up to be cohesive to a natural environment probably, well, most likely influences your brain. I know you've been saying you've been living in a flow state now for a while. That is the ultimate, in my opinion.
It's so couple really cool things, and I do want to get back because we didn't even mention who you were, what you've done the Olympics, anything like that. So I definitely want to get back to that because we're in this side of things. Couple things there. One thing that's super cool in the oncology space, MD Anderson, pretty big in the whole cancer community, right? Probably biggest in the world, right? Yeah. They are doing a lot of research on the whole bioresonance spectrums, right? Because they started doing things with bioresonance, so all this metaphysical work, where it's more mentality-based, and actually seeing these cancer cells to stop metastasizing and to slowly atrophy and to cause apoptosis to kill themselves off. They did a couple of these bioresonance studies, and guess what? It's stopping these cancer cells from metastasizing.
Wow.
Like, literally, the power of your mind is now being proven with cancer. And MD Anderson, biggest name out there, they're doing a lot of this research, and I give them so much credit because they're the forefront. They're the people that are kind of looked at for everything tumor related. And it's cool that it's finally getting its recognition because you've seen that living it, I've seen that living it, but to actually have harder research now can just slowly convince more people that, hey, like, this is real stuff. And it's combining that metaphysical and physical, right? If you just look at the basics of when people say thermodynamics, right? In reality, they're talking about entropy. In reality, entropy is chaos. Now, the problem is you can't say chaos without talking about order. Disorder has to have order. You have to have that polarity. If you can understand that polarity and apply it to everything in life, you'll realize nothing's ever really negative. you can start to slowly change your perception of reality, and then like everything becomes easy. That was the breakthrough I had. Actually, I had a couple breakthroughs that got me to that flow state. The biggest breakthrough for myself was realizing when I had that gallbladder surgery in 2020. I don't think we've talked about this off camera at all, but you know the rough story where I basically died on the table for like 10 seconds or whatever, and then came out of it, didn't really know anything that happened. But that near-death experience changed me forever. Didn't realize completely why, but things started happening after that. And it wasn't until a couple of months ago when I hit that flow state all the time, it was because I realized, okay, if you look at your microtubules in your body, that's what can house consciousness, right? Anesthesia, you know how it works? They don't explain it in any, there's no pharmacokinetic or dynamic research out there that explains how it actually works. Because you can see full brainwave states, full activity, but you can't do anything. It severs consciousness by basically slowly destroying these microtubules or temporarily destroying them. So when I went in for gallbladder surgery, right, what happened? I crashed on the table because they gave me too much anesthesia. So I had a near-death experience at the same time. So what does that mean? Anesthesia, which was the most unconscious state you can be in from a consciousness microtubular aspect, and then dimethyltryptamine release from the near-death experience, which is like the highest state of consciousness that you can exist in, where you kind of see the other side or people have different experiences. But I had both happen at the same time. And I didn't connect the dots as to that's what was like, that was my origin story, which sounds kind of creepy because you're like, oh, he fell into a vat of toxic waste, like whatever superhero. But like that anesthesia, that moment, that near-death experience for me was, it all started in 2020 for me. And it's funny because things start to slowly come together over the years. You mature, you change your perception, you live life, you start to see reality for what it is. And that's so malleable, right? And either way, when I finally recognized that that was how it all started, it just clicked. It was like literally the moment I understood that, I messaged one of my friends. I was like, holy crap, I just figured it all out. And then things just, I was in my flow state from that moment on, which is interesting. It's almost like I had to figure out how I got here and what was really the spark, right? To allow me to be in the state, because now it is like I'm in this flow state for you, then I'll be a flow state for work, and then family, then back to work, and then maybe training, and then sleep, and it's just constantly one perfect progression. And it's really cool because it's like when you can be this happy, then little things don't bother you, big things don't bother you, everything just goes easier, you're more successful, you're happier, like, and then it affects everyone around you. It really is a cool place to be at. But I didn't tell you that, and I've been wanting to tell you, so this is like
I really appreciate that, and I remember I had heard about it. I think you mentioned, I don't know where I'd heard about it, and so, I mean, that's profound. I do think that there's always this journey into a place where you come out something different. You know, this has been talked about in history, and I mean, I had something that, you know, my whole, when I got into this field of longevity, it used to be called anti-aging when I first got into it, you know, back in the, 17 years ago. Then it became biohacking, and now it's longevity. But all of my 40s, I laughed at every birthday I had. I mean, I was like a specimen. I didn't see any aging. I'm like, well, got this licked, you know, like, figure that out, you know. And then something happened to me when I started turning 50. I'm 52 now, and I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. If it was, I was like, it's not the number. Numbers have never bothered me. But something is changing. Something is happening, and I call it adult puberty. I said, I feel like it's something baked in the genetics that happens to you at midlife. And or around this time, because maybe we'll live longer than this, so it won't be quite midlife. Maybe it'll be third life. Hopefully, we'll see. But I couldn't shake it, and this mortality thing came into play, and I had noticed that I was aging, and I went through. I never had a gray hair on my head until I got into crypto investing, and my sleep got messed up, and look, I made really good money doing it, and I still like, I'm really big into it, but I couldn't also figure out, was I just falling off my rhythm, or what was going on? Maybe I'm just aging. I don't know. Maybe it's just no matter what you do, you know. But it really screwed with my head, and it made me question, and I fell off a lot of my, I had all my business set up, I had all my community, everything ready to go, everything. And I said, I can't do this. I can't lead people like this. I would feel fake. And I know the stuff. I know it backwards and forwards. And I could go through the motions, but I said, I don't feel it right now. And I can't, that's not how I lead. I lead by being the guy who is out there doing it, and you can depend on me. And so I put all my business on hold, and I just took a good while, and I even went and did ayahuasca. So 4 ayahuasca journeys. I went to Barcelona, and I found God. I literally had the most. I have a YouTube video. You can go on my YouTube channel, and I talk about the entire experience. And being this biohacker, I was the only guy in the room for every session that did not puke. Everyone was puking. You get so good at dosing. I found God in a cup and a half, and people were chasing, like, doing more than 4 cups. And I would kind of, they talked to her like, wow, you seem like you're having a really good experience here. And I said, yeah, well, I was like, I really set my intentions. I show up, I box breathe for 45 minutes before it even comes on, so I'm in the right nervous system state. And I don't rely on the cup to give me the answers. I meet it halfway. And it was such a beautiful experience for me, and it really, they say ayahuasca speaks to you. And the first night I thought that it did, and I thought I could leave after the first experience. But the second night, I felt enlightened. Like, literally, I felt enlightened. I said, I'm just going to do it my way. So as it was coming on, I did my full, mobility, I did my stretch, like a 30-minute stretch routine I did before I competed in the Olympics. I was the one guy off on the side. And I got so hot, but when I was doing it, I was feeling my body, and I laid down because I was so hot. I took off my shirt, and then all of a sudden, the heavens opened up, and I remember this voice clearly speaking to me, and it said, the most important relationship is the one with yourself. And I was like, oh my God, that's what that and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And then the rest of the, I don't know how many hours, I was just, I literally felt like I understood everything. Like, everything in life. Like, I was like, as if I think about it, I understand exactly why everything is everything. And I just cried, and it's so beautiful. And I remember being on the mat and going like, oh my God, I feel the presence of God here. I can feel it. I can feel the presence of God. And the shaman was this woman, and she was dressed in all this white gown. And she usually stays in her place, her place off away, at where everyone's around her, or the main people are around her that are running the thing. And right when I was I feel the presence of God, I look up, and she's right in front of my mat, playing this guitar like an angel, literally looked like an angel. It was like a messenger that said yes, here, it was just such a beautiful experience. And then I came back, and ever since then, I've always just said, this relationship with myself, is this, how am I being truthful to myself? Am I being integritous with myself? Am I really being real with myself? And now it's everything is like you're saying, I feel amazing. I wake up, I'm and so sometimes you gotta take a voyage, or something's gotta happen to you for you to flip that switch, and something just turn on in you that makes you come out the other end with a new resonance, a new perspective, so and I certainly am not advising. I know a lot of people like to check boxes. If you're someone out there who's like, oh, I'm gonna go to ayahuasca because Steve had a great experience. It's not one of those things. It's if you feel the calling, and it's calling you. And I'm not a woo-woo guy, but that's when it's the right time. This isn't just let me go do it for the experience. It should be honored. It is, you need to show up with 100% of yourself with the right intention. Because I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of psychedelics. Like I'm like, they scare me. You know, they can go you can go to the dark side on those things. I was scared big time, but I was like, I know why I'm doing this. I know it, and I have strength, and I am grounded, and I know I will get a good experience from this. And I know even if it's not pleasant, it's what I feel like I need right now. So I don't know if that's tangential to kind of like, you know, something what you said, but those experiences can really move you.
They can. I think the coolest part about that is that it's not woo at all. It's instinct. You'll know, like, if I should or should not do this. If you give yourself, and if you can change your perspective, right? To me, it's always about perspective. If you can step outside of yourself, have that conversation, like you said, with yourself. It's that metaphysical talking to your physical self. Like, is this the right thing to do? Like, is it right to steal that candy bar? Is it right to punch that person? Is it right to whatever? Like, you kind of know the answer. And then it's kind of up to you if you have the willpower, the integrity to listen to it or to not listen to yourself. So not woo-woo at all, for sure. And it is really cool because I've had the opposite, where I've been told by myself to stay away from anything psychedelic. I just know that I'm not ready for that at this point in my life. And it's something that if I ever have that pull, then I'll definitely go to do. But I feel like there's not going to be that pull until I'm like 70 or 80. I don't know why, but I just don't feel like, you know, that's something I would benefit from right now. But so many people have so many amazing experiences with that, where, like you said, I think they need that spark. They need to go on that journey to almost earn it, right? I think a lot of people in our 2026 society today, I think some people forgot, and probably not in this world, like all the biohackers, longevities, athletes, like everyone who's listening to this podcast, probably doesn't pertain to everyone here, but I think the majority of the population forgot how to earn it. Like, forgot how to go out and go after some things. And so actually that takes us back to your origin story in the Olympics, because we breezed over that, right? But I actually don't know exactly how you got into the Olympics and how you eventually got a medal. Like, what was that whole journey like? What was that initial transition?
Oh boy, you know, it's I look back on it with amazement. I just was a kid who was climbing the walls and watching kung fu movies and teaching myself how to walk on my hands. I could literally walk on my hands as a kid up the stairs. You imagine your mom, you're just like, what the heck, you know? And one day, I told my mom I taught myself back handsprings in the yard, and I said, Mom, I can do a backflip. And she said, no, you can't. And I said, yeah. She goes, show me. So we went out in the grass, and I went all the way down the yard doing back handsprings. And she was like, she couldn't believe it. So she goes, you should be a gymnast. My mom has the most amazing ability to talk to someone and say, I think you'd be great at this. And she never judges like whether or not, like how much money something will make or any of that. Like, this is what I think you are, you know? And she has incredible insight with that. And so she said, you know, I think you should do gymnastics. And I started crying, and I was like, no, I don't want to do ballet. I want to be a karate man, you know, that's what I want to be. But she took me to the gym, and I went to the gym, and a guy walked me through everything, and he was like, wow, you really have the right body for this. You could really do well with this. And I fell in love with it. And I remember coming home in my classes, and I was I'll tell you a lot about who I am. I was so mad because I'm like, everyone in my class is terrible, and I have to wait for them, and they're terrible, and they take forever, and I don't get enough time on the equipment. And she's like, just stay with it. And soon after, they put me on the team, and man, the '84 men's team won the gold medal. I watched it in Pauley Pavilion at UCLA, which I eventually got a full ride scholarship to be on the gymnastics team there. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And I spent the next 20 years trying to win the gold medal. And I got to travel all over the world. I mean, I was leaving by the time I was 12. And I started when I was probably 9.5. By the time I was 12, I was gone every Christmas for national team testing. I was traveling the world. And I did that all the way till I was 30. 30. And nothing got in the way of that. Nothing ever. I missed my first Olympics in 1996. I was super talented. Like, it was a shoo-in. I should have made it. I was probably the most talented I ever was. But I didn't have this. And I crumbled under the pressure. And then I was almost suicidal after I missed it. I left. I went to South Africa with a friend of mine for a summer. Again, change your environment. Because the Olympics were in Atlanta. And I was like, I need to get away. I need to separate myself from this. I don't even know who the hell I am. I have no idea what I am outside of a gymnast. I've never even missed a day of practice. I've never missed a day of practice my whole life. Ever. Even if I was sick. I mean, I was hardcore. And I went into, my buddy told me, he said, we should go to a gymnastics gym while you're here in South Africa. And I'm like, I don't want to go to a gymnastics gym. Are you crazy? Like, I'm here to get away from this. He's like, no, you should just do it. It'll be really fun. I walked in the gym this is when I felt like the biggest failure in life. And everyone in that gym knew who I was. They'd all watched me on the Olympic trials and everything. And I was like a superstar in this gym in the middle of South Africa. And that's what you talked about, that polarity. There's always a positive with the negative. There's always. And I said to myself, you know what? Maybe there's something positive about this. Maybe I've done something substantial here. Maybe I've inspired some people. And look at what it's done for me in life. This has been, I get to do what I love. I get to do what I love. And I've had all the support in the world. Like, what are you going to do? You going to just give this away? Be honest with yourself. You didn't do the work up here. You didn't do this. And I came back and I decided to move to the Olympic Training Center where I could really find out what I was made of, because they had everything for you. All the sports medicine, you lived on the complex, all the food. And I shaved my head as I drove up. Before I drove up. So I was like, I'm going into monk mode. That's why I call it monk mode. Like when I'm diving into an industry or something, I go into monk mode. Like just mitigate all external nonsense, right? Because I always had the hair. I always had the cool hair and stuff. And I had done so much yoga and meditation. I did silent retreats for 5 days where I did kriyas, where you really feel like your soul in you. And I journaled, I really tracked everything, and I just mastered my brain. I read books on visualization, and by the time 2000 came around, I was like, it's impossible for me not to make this team. There is no way you're going to break this. No way. And I was, and I made that team, and then that's kind of almost when your career starts, because now you're the Olympian. And now I was traveling even more internationally. I mean, they were sending me everywhere. And all of a sudden the body started breaking down. That's when I got into that phase where I was like having surgeries, and I was, it's only, once you make one Olympic team, you're like, it's only 4 more years before you make another Olympic team. And then I had to push for my second Olympic team. And that I think is the greatest accomplishment. Besides holding an Iron Cross at the age of 40 in a commercial, I was like, that was the greatest accomplishment I ever did.
Wait, what was that? The commercial?
So at 40, me and my buddy who I was on Olympic team with in 04, because we lived in LA, and I worked in movies, I worked in television shows, I did 2 seasons of like gymnastic shows. I doubled the main character in Peaceful Warrior, which is the book I read after I missed 96 Olympics. When I retired, I was his gymnast. And a lot of commercial work, but we got auditioned for this commercial where you had to hold an Iron Cross, and I was 40, 10 years retired at 40, and an Iron Cross is not easy, and it's very difficult. And my buddy was on Olympic team with me, and he was a ring specialist, so that was his specialty. He couldn't even hold it, and he was 5 years younger than me. And I got up there and I held a 10-second Iron Cross. And I had been telling him, I'm in this biohacking stuff, and I've been telling him for years. We walked out of that audition, he goes, dude, whatever you're doing, I'm in. but you know, it was a fantastic career. I don't know of honestly any other gymnast that's had the opportunities I've had in terms of global traveling, being in film and television and movies, and you know, I did the Victoria's Secret's fashion show. I hung out with supermodels in their show. We were performing in that. I've done so many things, and I got inducted to the Hall of Fame. It was just this amazing career, and then I retired. This was the biggest challenge. This was harder than anything I'd ever done in my entire life, and this is why I will always help an athlete. Like I don't care if I even make money. I don't even care about it. I'll just, whatever you need. Like if you've retired and you're going through a hard time, just give me a call. I got you. You know, I'll give you. I'll tell you everything I know. You know, and you know, by the end of your career, I was dating a Russian Olympian girl who had been on the Olympic team. My best friend had 14 Olympic medals. He won the Olympics. He was Russian. I'm drinking vodka with Russian politicians. Like I had gotten to like rock star state, you know. And what happens is you get so good that it doesn't even matter anymore. Like you're so good. You're at the quantum level of performance. If I raise my hand to do a routine, it was life or death contract. I will hit this or die. Like it was like that, you know, like quantum level. You know, like I always said you had to bend fate. They literally had to bend fate and pull it in your favor. And when you do, that's when you're that sports guy that for some reason can make that ridiculous shot somehow every single time. Like somehow you've wielded this universal energy to revolve around you now. It's the weirdest experience ever, and it's very addictive. And you get superstitious, and you don't want anyone to knock you off this like head of a needle that you're dancing on. I mean, you're dancing on a head of a needle, you know. And but when I retired, it was like it all came to a screeching halt, and I became an alcoholic. I think I was for about 5 years, just going sideways. And I got to this point where I said, I woke up one day and I was in pain. I was poofy. I just felt like garbage. I had brain fog. I had massive ADD. I couldn't even focus on anything. And I said, I used to feel like a superhero every single day of my life. I said, I'm literally, I realized I'm trying to actually kill myself. And I quit. I went to this thing called the Mankind Project, where you go with like men, and it's like a ceremonial type thing where you become a man. Like a lot of men in America, they don't have that ceremony like where you go into the woods as a 15-year-old and you come out of the woods a man. You know, like we don't have that. So we have a lot of grown-up boys, and I went to this thing, and I had to confront a lot of issues that I had with my dad, who was absent from my life. I was estranged from, you know. I don't call him a deadbeat dad anymore. Because I love him, and I don't choose to use that sort of framing anymore. I just say he had different choices, you know. And but I literally, you know, in the ceremony, like I saw red. Like I would have killed this guy that they had like symbolically being my dad. Like they had to hold me down, and then I had this massive catharsis. I released all this hatred I had for my dad, and I realized a lot of my gymnastics experience was fueled from this needing the love of a father. Every coach was my father, my proverbial father. I was trying to win the love of a father, so I was trying to please and win that love of something that I had never gotten, even the crowd, all of it. And it was a big awakening for me, and I never touched alcohol since then, and that was, I don't know, 17 years ago. And I quit on the spot, and that's when I got into, I happened to be dating this girl that had Lyme disease, and she was doing everything. She was doing red light back then, and saunas, and glutathione, and vitamin C IVs, and had a world-class supplement protocol, and like doing all this stuff. And she said, Steve, most people wait till they get something in life, like cancer, then they start. She's like, everyone should be doing what I'm doing. And I said, all right, I'm in. And that just started the whole journey. And I mean, I immediately, my physiology responded and I felt phenomenal. And that's why when I got, I have this picture of me when I was mid 40s, like 45, with my shirt off. And I actually looked better than I did as a gymnast even, and I always sometimes, in a lot of my speeches, I'll put a picture of me up at 26 and me at 45. And it was all on the premise that I don't ever want to retire from gymnastics. Because I had, when I retired, I was like, I'm retired. And it was like I was divorcing myself of who I was. It didn't work with me. It was out of alignment. But when I said, no, I'll always be a gymnast. It'll be a different form of a gymnast. Right? And so for me, I still consider myself, I'm a gymnast. But I don't compete. I don't do it what traditional gymnasts do. I'm the long-tailed version of the gymnast, And so that's kind of the whole origin from child to now. And it still doesn't mean that there aren't these massive roadblocks, like I told you about when I turned 50 and all that. But God, at 52, I'm so glad I went through that rough patch, because I'm not just for vanity's sake, but I mean, my body is like perfect again. I literally have an 8-pack again, and I have no pain, and I feel great, and my mind feels good, and I'm motivated, and I feel like I'm resonating in a high form of energy, and so no matter how good you are, I'll put a little cherry on top of this. The wall is coming. It will. And I learned very quickly, I see so many guys that were gymnasts retire when they're 26. The very first sign that they think their body is aging. So you're constantly doing this. You have your microcycles, and you have your long multi-year cycles, and then you even have even longer decade ones. And what happens, a lot of athletes or a lot of people, they hit that first roadblock and they're like, oh man, I'm aging, and they cave in, and they link in and they label themselves to that story, and then they start writing their mindset around that story, where I'm just getting old, or I'm over the hill with this. It's like, no, you're not. You're on this long form. It's hitting the bottom. Now's the time to dig in. Now's the time to start thinking about how you think. Now's the time to get back down to basics, get back to the roots, because it's going to go like this. I promise you, it's going to come back up. And I learned that from gymnastics, being in that MRI machine. When I was physically, it was it's impossible. I could have easily said, it's impossible. No, it's not. You got to just change the way you think, and you got to go, I'm down here. The pendulum always swings the other way. Always does. And it keeps knowing that keeps me humble, because when I have success, I go, this isn't going to stay like this. And when I'm down in the dumps, I go, this isn't going to stay like this. And I always notice every time I feel like I'm in the dumps, there's always some phone call, there's always something that pulls me out, that goes, there's that universe saying, no. See, I told you the pendulum would swing the other way. Every single time. And when you have enough awareness of this stuff, you just see this pattern. And I see it in the markets. That's why I invest. I see everything is boom and bust. Everything. So you invest in what? The bust. And then you sell in the boom. And if you know that's the way life works, you can use it in all these different facets.
It's hilarious, because I said it so many times, I track the trends and patterns. And it's for everything, for coaching, for family life, for nutrition, for this, for that, for every little goal. Track the trends and patterns. The same patterns throughout history. If you look at how viruses and vaccines were made, and how that's what repeats itself. And when there were pandemics and closures and things like that, it's repeating itself. The same thing repeats itself with these athletes. Like you said, everything is a repetition, which is really interesting. Because I said, once you realize that, it's not so hard. And especially on the athletic world, and the people I work with in the background, I'm usually the guy who's there for them when they're at their lowest. Yeah. And it's cool that I'm hearing this firsthand from you, because I've seen them go through that, and it's cool because I can be that motivating factor to not only provide the protocols, the whatevers to get to that next level, but also provide that mentality and that perspective. Because it is that pendulum swings, that polarity always exists. Yeah. And I do see that happen a lot where, and I think it's in all of life, right? Where a lot of people hit that first roadblock, it's like it's done. Because it's so hard and you think nothing could ever be this hard again, right? And if you have that original mentality and that willpower, you come through it, you get better than ever, and then you hit the next roadblock. Like you said, it's gonna happen and it's supposed to happen. But I think not having that awareness for a lot of people, like, I think my life is an easy example to use because everyone sees how positive and happy I am online and I am who I am. But like, besides Lindsay, no one knows all the roadblocks. No one sees how hard and all the things you go through when you break down crying. Like, no one sees that stuff. And to a certain degree, that's also part of your story. Like, you don't want to share that with everyone because it's super personal and it's part of that hero's journey or whatever you want to call it, right? But everyone has their own journey. And I think talking about it openly like this can hopefully help more people to kind of realize that. Because it is like, to me, whenever those hard times happen, I'm like, whew, something big's about to happen after this. I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to be positive, and I'm going to figure it out. You know, and I think that's where it helps if you have people in your corner, whether it's your spouse or a friend or someone like that, to just say, hey, going through a hard time, just need you to know that I'm going through this, you know?
Yeah, totally. I remember we got on a phone call when, not that long ago, you told me you were living in this flow state, and I remember I mentioned to you, I said, wow, I said, I'm really, really happy for you. You deserve it. I said, but most people probably don't realize how hard it's been getting here, I imagine. And I always, almost every, and that's why, that's why some of these like profiles on people, like I just watched the Hulk Hogan documentary on Netflix. My God. That guy like made wrestling what it is today, and he went until his body literally broke. I mean, and he propped himself up on everything from fentanyl to, steroid. I mean, everything. And I was just like, oh my God, this is, But I'm not suggesting that is. All of that is a hero story. Like that some of that could probably, someone probably could have sat him down and said, look, dude, we might want to hang it up at this point, right? Your life is falling apart. But I always look at every person that's successful, and I always imagine, like, I remember one time, I've played guitar for a long time, and I just love the culture of guitar. I love the history and listening to different guitarists and their tones and what instruments and amps and signal chains that they use. And I've always just, I remember one time I went to some concert and I told, my girlfriend, I was like, what you probably don't realize is that guy's made every mistake possible. He's broken strings on stage. His guitar's been out of tune. He's every mistake. Like, that's how you get good at something. You literally make every mistake and don't give up. And I used to say if I ever wrote a book, it would be called Fall Down, Get Up. And because that's what my gymnastics career was. People used to say, I used to joke, what do you do? And I said, I fall down for a living. As a gymnast, that's because people see this amazing performance, but they don't realize there was 1,000 falls to get to that. At least. So, I appreciate, there's even selfishness. Like, I wish I was interviewing you because, like, you have so much. It's so weird. Like, we speak the same language and we have the same life lessons, but yet you have this different vocabulary and way that you've interpreted it, and then I have my way that I've interpreted it, and so, but we're just linking together the same ideas, and so it's always fascinating to hear, everybody's how they got to these ideas or how they got to these states and knowledge, because you're probably one of the most, you are like the there's a lot of people in this industry. You're one of the people that I adore and belong here, in my opinion, because you have the experience of doing the work yourself and working with a lot of clients. You know the nuts and bolts, you know the biochemistry, and you can talk in that language, in the language of science. But then you have the third component, which it really resonates with me. You're just a good person, right? Like you can have those other two things, But if you're missing that one thing, that's what creates the trust. That's what creates really like, I know this person has my back and they have my best interest. I know it. I know they're a good person. And I don't think that can be understated enough. And I felt that from you immediately when I met you. And so I just really, I think that stuff is more important than people might think. And those are the people that I find that I have as followers in other like investing and other things like that. Like I always find like the good guy that has experience and knows the stuff. So you're that guy for me as well, you know?
Well, I appreciate that. And about the first time we met, what really sold me on you was whenever you were giving your presentation and you fell off the back of the stage.
Yes.
And you started laughing. You got right up. You didn't miss a beat. Like, I half stood up to make sure you're okay, but just half couldn't stop laughing because of how you handled it. It was just like, that's my guy. Like, he's just such a cool dude. Like, it was the best introduction to you that I could have asked for. And then we talked afterwards, and it was funny, but I'll never forget that. That was really funny. And then I come to find out, about the background in the Olympics and just that whole storied career and
fall down, get up.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, yeah. Like, you did it right there. It was my first experience of you.
Yeah.
But especially in the gymnastic world, the people that I've worked with in the Olympics and the gymnastics, I've had to take a step back on. Because I think from a different perspective, being the outsider third person who's working with the parent of, and the children, because they're children at that age, right?
Yeah.
And the mentality around that. And maybe it was different whenever you were younger. I think Olympics in general are fairly the same because it is kind of do or die. Like, not everyone gets that opportunity. I personally was not comfortable with doing certain things that were involved in that world from my perspective.
Yeah.
And just seeing how certain children were taught how to do things, right?
Yeah.
Where it was 2 practices a day, your elbow's bummed, that's fine, we're going to train through it, and destroying these children's bodies. And I understand it's everyone's personal decision and everything like that, but it was really hard for me. So that was another thing that I resonated with on that perspective with you, where it's like, okay, this guy's been through some stuff. I can only guess about half of it, but I know that half, and it's not an easy life.
Yeah, it's really not. I coached for a while, and I never wanted to coach. And I'm certainly not comparing myself by saying this by any means, because he's the GOAT in my mind of all time. But I saw this video clip of Michael Jordan say, they asked him why he doesn't coach. He's like, it would be unfair to the athletes. There's no way I could expect them to have the same standard I did. There's no way. And I resonated with that because I coached for a while, and the only reason why I coached is because I got asked to stand in, and then I found this kid and said, this kid has everything. I think this kid could go to the Olympics. And I was mesmerized by her. And she was young, and I was like, I really believe. And I started taking her to the Bella Caroli Ranch back when they had that, and really teaching her everything that I could. But I also was teaching her the mindset, too. I was like, I can start her early. With youth athletics, you have 3 things that if you don't have, they won't make it. You have the coach. You gotta have a great coach. You gotta have. There's the athlete. They gotta be able to have the raw material, the goods, and the desire, and then the parent. Without one of those, it won't work. The parent is off, so you have to groom the parent as much as you have to groom the athlete, and otherwise it just won't work. But what's also difficult about training youth sports is you cannot train an adult like you can train a youth. A youth you can train much, much harder, and you don't realize that until you are at the highest levels, really pushing them, and it becomes an art of managing very, very high volume and intensity and rest. And it's very different than an adult athlete, which I think is a lot easier in some ways because it's more binary almost in a way, whereas it's not so much with a kid. You can really, really push kids, but some people step on the gas too hard, and then they start stepping on the gas even harder by ignoring chronic injuries. And like, my opinion is, you're drinking from a fire hose. You are going to constantly be overtrained. That's why it is a youth sport. You are 100% overtrained almost all the time because you can't learn how to do 1,000 golf swings. Every skill is a new golf swing. How are you going to master 1,000 golf swings? You know, and if some golfer might be like, well, that's ridiculous. You know how hard. I just mean in theory, there's so many moving pieces, right? And I enjoyed it. And I felt like it was part of me passing back the baton. And my athlete eventually gave up on elite athletics because it was her parents were going through like a divorce, and she thought it was ruining their marriage. And I respected that. I did try to talk her out of it. I spent a long time saying, you have a gift in life, and a lot of people think, you know, when they're young, that they're going to have these opportunities in their life, and they're just always going to be great at something. Like, this might be the one thing that you'll be the best at that you've ever been at. You know, I just want you to know that. And you have this. And now she's in college, just crushing it. Like, she's like a superstar, you know, and got a full ride scholarship. And every time I see her performances, I'm like, I remember teaching her that. Yeah, I remember us going through the, you know, and it was an amazing experience to coach. And it taught me, the other hard part about coaching youth especially is, because I had these girls that come in and their parents would be like, oh, she wants to go to the Olympics. And I could tell the kid doesn't really want to, but they want the extra training so she can get a full ride scholarship.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, okay, let's have a conversation. And so I would talk to the kid and I said, listen, I always wanted to be a rock star. I said, I play guitar and I always wanted to be on stage, and I felt like I would be really good in front of a crowd and rock in the house and all that. I said, but I didn't spend 10 hours a day playing scales and learning theory and playing in my room all by myself 10 hours. I said, I liked the idea of being a rock star, but I didn't really want to do the work to be one. I was like, I will tell you right now, you will, if you do this, you will not enjoy it most of the time. You will feel like you're failing almost 99.9% of the time. I said, is that what you want? Do you like the idea of being an Olympian? Or do you have to be one? If you tell me you have to be one, I'll work with you. And most of the time I'm like, no, I just like the idea. And it's like, and the mom was like, oh God, how did he talk her out of it? You know? But it's so true. It's like, I had to be. There was no plan B, you know? And to be that sort of, I don't wish that upon anybody. I call it a curse. Yes, you know, it might be, you know, a bit shallow to say that or demeaning it. It is a curse that you turn into a positive. It is a massive polarity, right? Curse, ultimate dream, right? And you have to push it to the other side. So that's why that documentary, The Weight of Gold, with Michael Phelps came out, and I was like, I didn't resonate with it because I sort of felt like they were putting a blame on like external people. I'm like, look, it's on you. Like, if you could say I'm done at any given moment in time. Don't put blame on somebody else. But there was some things they hinted on as to what it can do to you to be in that, live that sort of life. And I watched the Olympics, the Winter Olympics, and man, I'm just like, even more just like, God, I just can't believe the brainwashing that we did to get ourselves to that state, you know?
Oh yeah. Speaking of Winter Olympics, did you see Penis Gate?
So they were okay. Oh, okay. Now we're gonna get some views. Now let's get into this. But so especially if they're more hung, then it does something so they can jump further.
Essentially, yeah, more material in the crotch, so you can actually hit the wind and you can get an extra basically push forward right now.
Are you working with those guys?
So 6 years ago, we actually started that. And
way.
And
Yes!
I only want to brought up Winter Olympics. I know you'd appreciate it. I didn't think we talked about it. We've been doing this for a while, and at that level, it's anything to get the edge that to me is not breaking the rules. I never want to break the rules, but I would rather be smarter. And there was nothing in the rule book about that. So we've been doing this in the background for a while. We've got some medals, right, in a couple different places, which is pretty cool. And then I decided, you know what, I should really try and give back to the Olympic community. And I started working with a couple of coaches and just teaching some of the certain theories and ways to apply these things and what.
Which I'm sure they don't mind learning how to enhance their penis as well.
Exactly, right? Like it's win-win for everyone. And so then there's also the flip side of this, which we do over in the female, which they didn't actually catch yet. So that's just a little teaser for the future when that comes out. But either way, ended up teaching the wrong coach, who I guess was out to dinner with a whole table of people. He starts bragging about, what they're doing in the background, and no one's going to ever catch them. And one of the individuals at the table was a WADA USADA official. And then from what I heard, that's how that whole story broke. And I talked with this individual. He apologized, like, no hard feelings, nothing like that. I'm not going to call her out or anything like that stupid.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because it was blown up. I think the Olympics get blown up like you're a cheater, you're doing something wrong or something like that. I don't think people realize how much is at stake at that level. You're doing everything else right. If you get any advantage that's not breaking the rules, why wouldn't you do that? And so I was super proud of that. I was like, we got 6 years with that, and I thought it was basic back in the day, but that got us 6 years of additional medals. Like, I'll take that. Now it's on to the next thing, which I already had teed up for whenever this did happen.
Yeah, and that that stuff. I've been. We'll get into this a little bit. Why not? But I've been in doing penile optimization since 2014. I just remember one day I was like, that's it. This needs to be treated just like everything else. And there's I know there's ways to speed it up. You want to do the IGF-DES. You want to do the topical DHT. You want to. There's ways you can like signal the thing to. But if you just stay with it with traditional methods. I mean, I now I like that I have done that because I feel like the functioning aspect has not degraded at all. And you will. You can certainly. I mean, I've gotten now to a point, and I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but I don't even want any more size. I don't. I just want it to just stay optimal. And I look back and I'm like, Jesus, I've been kind of indirectly not paying attention to that. I've been doing this work for, over 10 years. And when people make those claims, like you can get a few inches, and like you definitely can, but it takes time. It is a slow remodeling process, unless you want to. And I'm sure you can turn it up, and I know you probably have tools up your sleeve for that. But it's something that I think as a man it kind of belongs in your same category as testosterone. Like it's part of your I don't know how it is for everyone, but for me, your ability to make love and connect and like link in with your partner is a cosmic connection that can resonate your vibration to and your love to levels that are unachievable, in my opinion, without it. I mean, if you think about it, that's what a relationship is. A relationship is always centered around the fact that we have an intimate relationship, and to have the body parts, and you got to have way more than just the body part, but that is a functioning aspect of coming together. And so but I can't believe you were of course you're the guy who I'm not surprised at all, as much as I'm surprised to hear it.
So on the whole erectile health conversation and longevity, like kind of meshing all the parts of this whole podcast so far, right? You could make the argument that you would have less chance to get breast cancer and prostate cancer and cervical cancer, males and females, right? Depending on which cancer you're looking at there, just by doing these drills. So if you look at what it takes for a female to have cervical or breast cancer, and a lot of those cancers in the female-based world, a lot of it's coming down to some kind of hormonal and metabolic problem, right? So if you can optimize hormones, then all of a sudden that should be less likely to happen.
Yeah.
Now, if you really get down to the nitty-gritty, you're really looking at libido, which is the arousal and the desire curve, right? So if you as a female are desiring intimacy, desiring penetration, desiring whatever intimacy means to you, right? Automatically, that tends to mean that estradiol, estriol, estrogen are generally pretty balanced. Progesterone, testosterone, pretty balanced. They might not be optimal, but at least you know they're in a pretty good range, right? Then you correlate that to sexual functioning. As a female, you not just have vaginal lubrication, you have the ability to orgasm through nipple and breast-based stimulation, clitoral stimulation, like all these different urethral and perineal sponges, all these different ways, right? And if you slowly look at the research out there, the individuals that orgasm consistently, ideally with a partner because of the connection you talked about, which is massive, you're literally transferring energy in that scenario.
Yeah.
But if you look at the ability to orgasm consistently within a week, 2 weeks, month time frame, it correlates with every other better biomarker you can imagine. Increased HRV, better sleep, better absolutely everything. And the interesting part about this, and this is kind of going back to the energetics of it, because this could be good or bad. I don't think I've talked about this publicly, but I think females need to be very cautious with who they let actually inseminate them. So if you look at the vibrational potential of semen, the charge and the actual electromagnetic spin you can give a female or your partner, right, is massive. So much so that it can stick with them for about 1 to 3 years, if not longer. So what that means is the individuals that are in abusive relationships that are still intimate with their partners, they leave and they're damaged usually for about 1 to 3 years at least to finally get out of that, because they're picking up on the vibrational capacity and the patterns of that male counterpart. So the same can be said, though, if your male counterpart is your soulmate, is your person, is that person that makes you so happy and is giving you more of that coherent spin, right? So the same way that insemination can be positive, it can also be massively negative. And I only think it's important to bring up because in 2026, and again, I might be out of it, I don't know what kids are doing these days, but it just seems like there's a lot more promiscuity than there was when I was younger. I think with the dating apps, it just made it kind of too easy. And I'm seeing a lot of women, I talk with a lot of my clients, and I'm very open about this with all of them. Like, you need to be very careful with who you actually let ejaculate into you or onto you. Because, like, as odd as that sounds, that is literally what makes life. So the vibrations and it's really the electromagnetic field around those sperm cells, if that's what's actually going to go through the whole oocyte ovum process, penetration, and actually cause birth, it's got to be pretty strong, right?
It's very interesting.
So I think looking at it from that perspective can maybe give some women a better perspective on how to or how not to proceed with partner selection, or even take it a step further in why you probably should be more intimate with your partner if you're in a marriage or whatever relationship, because it is, like you said, it's so massively beneficial. And that at a subquantum, because this is quantum, this is subquantum level, how it affects everything upstream from there, how you handle subatomic particles, all changes. So literally, intimacy is probably one of the healthiest things you could do, and that goes back to what we talked about with the functionality of your sexual organs. Because as a male, if you start to slowly have some fibrosis, slowly have some bends over time, or less hemodynamics to the area, so less blood flow, it impedes in that. And then it kind of starts to slowly change the spin of those molecules in your sperm cells, and then it's less efficient, and then it's also just not that fun. You feel kind of less masculine, right, if you don't kind of have that. So I think it's important for multiple reasons on both genders.
It's a very interesting take on it. And, I've been fortunate as a man, to have many great girlfriends, and I remember I had this. I went through this phase where I was like, there's some sort of connection, like I thought maybe it was bacteria, because there's this. What was that book? You contain multitudes of. I really got fascinated by bacteria back like 10 years ago, and that bacteria can communicate like from a distance, right? From like on other, like, it doesn't matter, like they're. And I thought, how is it that there's times with women that I had intimate relationships with, and I would think about them, and maybe I would kind of get stuck, in a fascination and just thinking about them. And then all of a sudden, I would get a text from them. And and it happened enough times where I said, this is no longer a coincidence. This is not a coincidence. I'm absolutely certain of it. Like the odds cannot be like this. And I thought, what is this residual that is still, what is in us that is somehow a piece that allows us to communicate that we don't know we're communicating. And I thought, is it bacteria? Is it something? I mean, is it something like you said in the semen? I don't know, but it's always perplexed me because I've secretly believed this. I've never shared that, but it's one of those things. I'm like, I just know it to be true.
So even beyond, like, because you could say quantum entanglement, and then that's just kind of end all be all, because that's real, that's been proven, Nobel Prize, whatever. But the step further to that is, and this goes back to bacteria. If you were in any relationship where there's any kissing, oral intimacy, anything like that, that's technically FMT, so fecal matter transfer, like those fecal matter therapies and things of that nature, because everything's just the law of locality, everything's so close in that sexual region, right? And so that's bacteria. And so if you are then kissing, partner, whatever, you have that transference of bacteria. So throw spermicide, or throw the whole spermatic conversation away and look more at the bacteria like we're talking about, like you said. Yeah. And the interesting part about all of this, and I've seen this with all the couples I work with, I've seen that with me and Lindsay. So Lindsay just started taking probiotics and caring about health over the past year or so, right? Her Vitract gut test is almost as good as mine, and she does nothing for it, and she eats pretty bad. Like she's starting to change, right? But I've been doing it for like a decade plus. She just started doing it, and yet they're very close. Every couple I work with, you get these tests back, and they're eerily similar. They're very, very eerily similar. And both of them could be doing it wrong, or both of them doing it good, but they always almost mimic each other. And there'll still be the gender differences or like that personal difference, but there's no reason why, like Lindsay's the example, there's no reason why her gut should be as good as mine, right? When I do everything perfect, mine should be immaculate and hers should be terrible, and it's not that way. And there's no explanation. But then you have the bacterial communication systems that exist. Because remember, back in the day, algae, top of the water, solar new would hit, and it would proliferate and slowly became mitochondria. That communication system. So how it works is those tunneling nanotubules, right? So you have those cells, you have those tunneling nanotubules between them, and mitochondria will go on those highways. At the same time, within those tunneling nanotubules, there's also the connection with microtubules that house consciousness. So you basically have mitochondria talking to microtubules, which contain consciousness, which it's not location specific. So I could feel when Lindsay's off. I can know when I need to call her. Or like you said, it's not just with her. It could be previous relationships. Now, I've been with Lindsay for 14, 15 years, so everything like that's long gone with everything else. But with her, I have that to a crazy degree. And anyone who's been married for a long period of time or been faithful for a long period of time, they have that too. And so it could not just be the seminal, it could be also the bacterial, for sure.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I knew you'd be somebody that could probably put a framework around that, Yeah, it's funny because we got this podcast, and you and me we're pretty, like, almost every time we get on a phone call, we probably could just hit record, and if we just stayed on long enough, it would be some sort of podcast because we just go, So, I was kind of thinking, like, I wonder where we're gonna go today, and I was like, the beauty is I don't even know, and I don't want to know because I'll probably learn a lot of new things if we go into these. If I just keep it spontaneous, I studied theater in LA for many years and did some acting in LA, and the whole thing with acting is that you want to be spontaneous in the moment, and so. That's why, like, a lot of times if I speak on stage or whatever, like, I know my bullet points, but really, I just want to talk. I want to connect with the audience and keep it spontaneous. I don't want to know everything I'm going to say. I don't want to know, because it's already in there. And it's the same way when I trained athletes. I said, look, when they get to competition, they're like running through their routines and all the stuff in it. And I said, ladies, listen, when you open up your MacBook, are you worried that the software is not installed? Like, no. We already installed the software. You don't need to think. Don't even think about anything. Nothing. Don't have it. Really? Nothing. Don't think. Let it go. It's there. The software is installed. Don't get in the way of it, you know? Yeah. So we're with crypto, yeah?
Yeah, crypto, again, everyone always talks about it. And I understand some of the basics, but also not at all. And anytime I've wanted to dig into it and learn about it, I've just focused on 5,000 other things. Like I'd rather learn about cells and biology, mitochondric acid, like whatever, instead of crypto. But I've always wanted to actually learn. And me and Lindsay realized, like, now that we've been investing fine, like we should have been investing for at least 6 years now. But like as you have kids and build house and have dogs, it was like last of our priorities. So it's like this past year we finally got into investing, and with that maybe crypto. But I thought it'd be cool to talk about like just a basic introduction to crypto for people that are just getting into it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can get into a very in-depth explanation as to, you know, blockchain and the actual nuts and bolts of what it is. I don't think that's appropriate for this if we're talking about just the investing aspect of it. The thing to know is that the entire financial system is being disrupted. It's all so there are old payment rails. Like if you look at Swift, if you want to transfer money, you know on the weekends the banks are closed and it takes 5 days to wire money. That's why you've seen a lot of these other things like Zelle or these other, but there's still a lot of them are using old payment rails. And so crypto is basically a decentralized online ledger that, and it trades 24/7. And so it's going to start replacing the piping of the financial system. And there's a lot of projects out there. I wouldn't invest in 99% of them. Most of them will go away because they don't have any real utility. But if you stick to the majors, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, things like that, though, you stand a good chance. But how do you invest? Because a lot of people get caught up in the narratives, like, oh, this bank just decided to do this, or I read this article on this. You have to literally divorce yourself of the news. The news will wrong foot you. It's just a narrative. And most of the news is bought and paid for by financial institutions. So like when I first got into Bitcoin, I had Bitcoin and Ethereum, and they were saying in the 2021 bull run, when the markets were raging, and they were saying, Morgan Stanley and all these people they were saying, oh, we have this predicted Bitcoin's going to go to 100,000. And I thought, oh, how odd. It's just going to land on 100,000. That's interesting. That big fat round number, it's just that's your projection. Because my projection is 69,384, whatever it was, using my, charting and tools and stuff. Sure enough, I sold and I timed the top of Bitcoin and Ethereum perfectly, and it never got to 100,000. They try to get the retail to come in so that they can sell on you. They need liquidity. They need buyers to dump on. And so it's a game. It's the one thing investing reminds me the most of being an elite athlete. You have to master your emotions. Now you can just be a long-term investor, buy and hold and forget. You can just, every month I buy so much of this or so much of that. But crypto is very cyclical. Every 4 years it does this. Just open up a chart of Bitcoin, open up a chart of any major cryptocurrency, and it has a 4-year cycle. So for me, I like to buy when it's low. Right now is a great time to buy. Right now is a good time. I still think we're going to go down lower. I think between now and October, you can really load up big time. And then we should start to have, over the next 2027, 28, 29, it should really start to top off. And then you've got to be, if you want to make money on this, when it's erupting, you got to be able to sell. So it's very hard for me to give advice on this because I'm too far down the rabbit hole. I have very high conviction. I'm a very good chartist. I look at charts first thing when I wake up of like all the markets, all the entire macro landscape, from interest rates to all the major stock indexes. The stock index is priced in gold. What is it in real value in terms of just the dollars? Because the dollar can be inflated. Like all these different relationships and charts and Fibonacci extensions and wave counts. I love it. But if you still look at Bitcoin and you just look at it, because I would just say, just buy Bitcoin. Like, it's the king. It operates almost like perfectly on 4-year cycles. So you can, we're hitting around the bottom now, probably now till October, anytime now. And then it's going to start making its way up. And between 4 years from the last cycle top to this cycle top, as it gets close to that, you need to start selling. And that's if you want to play the swings and you want to make really good money. You can make a lot of money doing that. Or you can just say, I have a longer time horizon. I'm just going to buy and hold. But the problem with that is this next big run could be the last one for a while. We're entering the end of a business cycle. Everything's got to reset. I think the stock market's going to crash, but this year, I think the S&P 500, there's been no breath in the market. It's been propped up by Nvidia and Microsoft and Apple and Amazon and Meta. And so all that's what's been propping it up. It can't go on forever. You chart the S&P 500. It's been like this, like nonstop. It's a bubble. It can't keep going. It's printing a classic 5-wave bubble count. And so if this thing rolls over, and then what happens is it will retrace, usually 70%. People think the bull run's back on. That's when everything will start erupting. And then it can start making a multi-year thing down. So it just depends what kind of investor you want to be. Do you want to be a long-term investor because you're not going to retire for maybe 20, 30 years from now? Maybe you're never going to retire. And so you're just stacking and holding, and you don't like to do analysis. You don't want to dive in like you do with biochemistry and health. I do. So for me, I like to play markets that are highly reflexive and there's asymmetry, meaning a risk of 1, a return of 10. Like we had a silver run. There was a silver bull run. And what was the narrative? There's not going to be enough silver in the world to make all the chips and the things that we need silver for. And silver is a monetary metal as well, so it's kind of like a sister to gold. It's like an altcoin, like an Ethereum to gold, And I was like, it became reflexive. So the price goes up, it affects the opinion of people. They think price is going to go up, so they buy. It makes price go up. It affects even more opinion, and then the narratives start happening. So I just caught that whole run up and then sold before everyone realized, oh, we're going to be fine. There's enough silver in the world, So if you're not that kind of guy, I would just say, here is the simplest playbook. If you want to get into crypto, buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, or Solana. One of those 4. Buy anytime now, between now, you can start accumulating now to October. That's when I would get your stack, and then in two and a half years, because we've already been in a bear market. Most people don't realize the bear market starts at the top and when it's going down. Most people think, oh, now we're in a bear market. No, we've been in a bear market for over a year. The day Trump got elected, inaugurated into the White House, is when the crypto market topped. That was the literal top of the market, and then it did, and then it made its way down. So we've been in what's considered a bear market, a down market, since that happened, and that's already been January of last year. So we're already almost a year and a half into a bear market. So buy now into October, and then in 2 years, start getting ready to sell. And in 2 years, you can just forget about it. Just literally forget about it. And then start paying attention. And when this thing starts getting up to a top, and that's when you can sell. And at that point, I don't know. I've thought about even being an influencer on this because I know it well enough. But here's the thing. I love to help people with health. I love it. It's part of my heart. I don't like to help people with investing because they can.
Don't you do that for people though?
Well, I'll give some advice to some people, but I'll tell. I'm like I have crypto buddies or investment buddies, and I don't want that responsibility of you losing money because of me, because it is. I want at least something in life that is just mine and that doesn't constantly leech me. But like in health, I just love helping people. When it comes to investing, it's like, this is just my thing, dude. Like, it's just, I like it. I'm happy. Like, if you called me up and you said, hey, I see Bitcoin's getting to this, what do you think? Dude, of course I'm going to tell you. Like, of course. But I don't want to be the guy, because all the good people in crypto, all of them, all of the real guys who are looking at data they get blasted by all the people. They get abused by people because no one wants to believe the top is in. No one wants to believe the bottom is in. These guys are always 2 steps ahead, and all the retail investors, all the people who are not looking at data, they're just looking at news narratives. They're like, oh yeah, and they just give them so much. I mean, I know one guy I follow. I know him, and he's like, he takes so much heat from, and I'm like, I don't want that. Like I have crypto buddies who are smart guys, and I'll tell them I sold top sin. I think a top sin. I'm out, and they're like, you become a bear. You become a bear, and I really think that you... And I'm like, dude, like, just, you make your own choices. I can always buy... And sure enough, they round trip their bags, they call it. So they bought, it goes up to the top, and they bring it all the way down. And they're like, oh, you were right. But they give you so much... It's like, when you help someone with their health, and you get them feeling better, looking better, and just, they're more vibrant, it's such a great feeling. Try talking somebody out of holding on to something that you know is going to come down. When the drug, that greed factor hits their arm, and they're like, they start thinking about like, oh, I can buy that Rolex, and I can do this, and I can do that, and it's like, dude, you've already fantasized about all these things. You're done. Like, you've let emotion, zero emotion when it comes to this style of investing. Zero. You got to be. No emotion. I know when I've made a good trade, and I'm not a trader, I'm an investor. I know when I've made a good investment the moment I buy. I know it. I just know it. And there's times when I've been like, and the emotion gets in it, and those are the times that I've lost money. And I feel like I think I'm more equipped for this than I actually am at anything else. So that's why I caution, I'm really far down the rabbit hole. Like, I look at the entire, I don't like the news, but I have to watch it because I need to see what's happening on the geopolitical scale and how it's going to affect the macro landscape. And you've got to understand the macro landscape. Where are we in the regime? And my buddy, who is an investor, and he's more of a long-term investor, but he always tries to he's emotional. He buys stuff when he sees it going up. And I'm like, it's already done, dude. It's done. You're buying, you're providing liquidity for those guys to dump on. And so, and I got him to start charting and looking at charts and saying, see how this thing, and I said, listen, he was on an Olympic team with me. And I said, look, would you train someone the year after the Olympics the same way you would train them 2 months before the Olympics? No. I said, you're investing like it's the same. Where are we in the business cycle? Bitcoin is nothing more. People want to call it digital gold and nonsense. It is liquidity. It is a liquidity gauge. More money pumped into the economy, interest rates lower, more money is going to be used in commerce. People can borrow money. There's going to be more liquidity. The Fed increases the money, does quantitative easing. More money pumped into that. What do you think is going to happen to Bitcoin? It's going to go up. What are we doing right now? We're finishing the business cycle. And when that happens, the Fed, all that stuff will start to quantitative easing because we're going to probably venture into a recession, and then they'll start trying to pump money into that. that is exactly what causes Bitcoin to go up. So for me, that's a long-winded answer to answer your question. But if I had to dumb it down, buy between now, Bitcoin, or, I would say just buy Bitcoin between now and October, and start looking in 2 years and be ready to get out. Don't get greedy. Take a 3x. Take a 3x every 4 years. You're as good as Warren Buffett, like the greatest investor of all time. That's what I aim for. A 3x every 4. I'll take a 3x every 4 years, no problem. So that's kind of how I do it.
So that actually helps me out a lot, because it's the trend and pattern of someone who's done that, right? And for me, I like the whole investing versus trading thing, because I don't want to spend the time watching the news and tracking the markets and seeing when the fear mongering is going to begin and when people are going to start pulling money, spending, whatever. I'd rather, like you said, find that 2-year swing, just buy now, wait, and then around 2 years say, hey, Steven, when should I pull it out now, or should I wait a little bit longer? Right?
Yeah.
Like, I can get behind that for sure. That makes more sense to me, because I'm not in it for the day-to-day. Like for you, it sounds like it's more of a ritual, a passion, and it's extra fun on top of making you money, which is super cool. And for me, I see that as just being a way to have my money make me money, which then goes to the kids and grandkids and all that fun stuff. So that's cool for me, but I don't want that day-to-day hassle. So that makes actually, you explained Bitcoin the best of anyone I've ever asked. That makes the most sense and also has the easiest application for me. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, my pleasure. And by the way, you can always call me, and I'm happy to help you out. But it can be, we're witnessing a very new industrialized revolution with AI and with crypto. So there is a lot of money to be made. It's a 24-hour, 365 days a year market. The stock market isn't like that. It shuts down. They actually have kill switches if the market starts to crash to slow it down. They don't have that in crypto. So just know that when you buy, there is going to be a massive 50% correction at some point between the time you buy and the time you sell. Just know that. And I've had buddies call me up and like, dude, are you not worried? I've lost literally. I remember last year I was like sitting on the couch and my buddy called me and I was like, I said, I told you it's coming. There's going to be a back test, and it's going to be, I looked and I was like, in less than 1 minute, I lost $250,000 on paper. In less than 1 minute, and then, but I didn't lose that by the time I had sold, because I knew that was coming. So, that's the problem. So people get emotionally shaken out of the market. So the biggest problems I'll say. This is the last thing I'll say, unless you want to talk more about it. But here's what people do: they limp in. They don't know what they hold, so they'll be like, I'll put 10 grand in. I'll put 20,000. Granted, this is all depending on how much money you have. So I'm not speaking.
No. That's a good point though. What would be a realistic amount of money that someone should put in if they're looking to make a big return, like a decent return? And I know it depends on the person, but like you said, 10 or 20 grand kind of limping in. What would be ideal? Is 50 enough? 100, 200, like $250,000? Like you said, where's that range?
It's all a factor of your conviction. So I have massive conviction. So for me, I will do hundreds of thousands of dollars of buying something. And because I know the way this boom and bust cycle works. I know it. The narratives are not going to shake me. The 50% challenges are not. I invest in the regime, right? And so, but because I do that, because I have so much conviction, I don't need to chase what a lot of people are doing they want a 10x return. Dude, 10x those days are over. Like, you are so lucky if you get a 10x. But if I get a 3x return, even double that money, I'm happy. I'm like, and I have enough money invested that it turns into something that you go, I want to keep this, so I'm not going to chase the top. I don't need to flirt with the absolute top like I did in the beginning. In the beginning, I started with, I first invest 200, then it became 1,000, then it became 5,000, then it became 25,000, then it became 50, and I turned 50 into 350, and then I started taking that, and then I started doing, big trades. So I built my conviction by my confidence. And the biggest mistake I see people make is they go, even if they think they're going in big, let's say they put in 10 grand or 20 grand, and which is that's a good amount of money, but they're thinking, oh, this thing is going to go 10x, and because all the crypto influencers are all so many of them are charlatans. They're fake. They're just trying to get engagement and pump people up, and so these guys think that their 200 is going to, or a 20 is going to go to a 200, and then they start thinking, oh, maybe I can buy that Rolex, or I can get that new this, or I can do that. You know, they're not thinking about their family and their, a lot of these guys. And so what happens is they start marrying this idea of what it's going to be. And when the top comes in, if it wasn't the bull run that we expected, like 2021, but this last one we topped on apathy because gold and silver stole the show because we were having different ending the business cycle. So they won't sell. And so they limped in, they won't sell the top, and then they come all the way back down, and then they go, I guess I'm a long-term investor. And it's like, yeah, well now accumulate again, and next time sell. Whereas for me, I'll go in bigger. And again, you don't need, I'm not saying to go in bigger. I'm just saying what I've learned is if I go in bigger because I know the dynamics of the market, I don't chase massive returns. I scale out as the market is getting frothy. When you go to a restaurant, I've been in a restaurant in LA in 2021 at a nice Italian restaurant, and I listened to it, and I was like, every table is talking about crypto. The top is in. It's time to get out. It's time to get out. You know, when your grandma is asking you about Bitcoin, it is time to get out and stop marrying yourself to some idea that it's going to keep going. Just take your wins. You can get out of the rat race so fast if you just have conviction and you don't get greedy. Like honestly, you could very easily double your net worth very easily. You know, if you just if you have conviction and don't get greedy. And I'm not some super rich crypto investor guy, but I think that the way I do things over the course of my life will make me more money for sure than anything I'll do in health, which I like because then I can do the health because I love it and I like helping people. Like I don't want to charge people an arm and a leg for what I do. I want them to know I'm the guy who does this, will really look at sourcing, really to have tried all this stuff, like lives by this stuff, and tries to give you, most importantly, the health, vitality, the looks, the feel, the performance, rather than just getting money from you. I don't view it as a business. I view my investing as the business, you know. That's how it works for my constitution. You know what I mean?
I like that. So, okay, that's the perfect transition then to what do you even do specifically in the fitness space, right? Because you have a lot of options you can offer, some things you do, some things you don't, but publicly, what are some of the public things you do in the health and fitness space, longevity, everything?
Yeah, so I have gone back, I've really embraced AI a lot. And, you know, a lot of people think that like, well, you know, they view AI as this chat window that will give you answers to questions. No, AI is a tool that can be the pinnings, the nuts and bolts and the piping of information. Doesn't mean, rather than like I could go search for studies or I could have my AI pull up studies based on certain criteria that I look at, right? Like it can filter based on what I tell it to filter. It can automate certain things that Steve had to sit there and click and do this and da-da-da. So I'm going through this massive revamp. I redid all my entire businesses. I structured them. I redid all my LLCs and really, really intelligently, I think at least. But if you ask me what I did, I run events around the country where we do exosome experiences, which I'm a huge fan of, which we can get into that. I know that, they're near and dear to my heart, and I've helped a lot. I've seen so many amazing things with them. I do a lot of affiliate sales. I have a full script account Thorn, I probably have 2,500 people buying supplements from me that I built that like one guy at a time, you know, athletes and stuff like that. And then it just turned into like thousands of people. But Fullscript's pretty cool because I also offer a discount on everything I always sell. I have a lot of different partnerships with different, you know, vendors. I do one-on-one work with clients. I have groups like a lot of like young 35 to 45-year-old finance guys in New York. These guys are awesome. They're like total go-getters, family men. They have money and they're just like, they want to be optimal and they're just like, they're so sharp. I mean, it's amazing, you know? And so I'm always, you know, trying to instill, and then I have a community that has been ready to go for a while, but I waited until I felt like I'm very close to launching that because I feel like a lot of my protocols and everything have been very bulletproof and sort of tested, you know, through enough people where now I can add scale to that. Because like I said, I really like to, you know, I want to, you know, make sure that what I'm doing is on the up and up. And one thing that I did very early in my career is, you know, I was pre-med at UCLA. I was always wanted to be a doctor until I switched to finance and studied finance. That's probably why I like the investing. but I you know, I host some events, medical events, and I talk to more doctors than any probably other demographic. I embraced the medical side of things very early, and have found a way to partner with doctors and work with doctors because you know, you look at kind of the age we live in where probably every man walking on this planet, his life would be improved at some point in his life by hormone replacement therapy, right? You look at what's happening to peptides. I mean, I was injecting myself with peptides 13 years ago. Like, I mean, it was so underground. Not even Ben Greenfield or any of those guys were talking about it. And I had to learn it from this guy in Europe. And now it's like everybody, like you have to like calm down everybody. You're like, you need to slow it down, like it's out of control. But these signalings, these hormone, you know, like hormones are a signaling molecule, you know, peptides, they're signals, you know, exosomes or an orchestration of signaling with signaling. And so, you know, these things are becoming the norm. So building a company that really can, you know, always offer the fundamentals as information and help guide people on making sure their sleep and there's the right partner doctors that I have a really good sleep guy, you know, the nutrition, the exercise, stress is huge right now. I mean, people are so irritated and polarized. I mean, stress is so bad. But then offering, you know, these compounds and, you know, from a very good, you know, looking at blood work, getting people tested, you know, looking at, you know, filling in the nutritional gaps, looking at, you know, their gut, you know, looking at, and, you know, these signaling pyramids, you know, that are appropriate for the person at the right time. Where are they in their cycle of the year or their cycle of life, you know? So it's a lot to really bundle up together, but, you know, I just love it. I mean, I met a guy at a crypto conference, and he was like, "Man, I've been waiting to meet a guy like you." He's in mid-50s. And I said, "Well, let's look at your blood labs, you know, because I know you want to do a lot of optimization, but you have some cardiovascular risk from your family and talking to you." His LP(a) was 160, and yeah, and his ApoB and his LDL particle count and his L plaque, you know, he's got arterial inflammation, and I'm like, because I told him, I said, "Listen, I know you want to do all this stuff, but I said, I cannot live with myself if I know you have cardiovascular risk and we don't look at that, and I don't help you find some, you know, at least that disease mitigation is number one. That is the oh, I want to live to be 160. I'm taking NAD and I'm doing all these things and peptides and yeah, but what are you doing for that massive cardiovascular risk that wiped out every single person in your family, in your genetic lineage? Do you have a plan against that? Because that's your bottleneck. Like, that is number one. Number one. We can't even do anything until you have that is where all your resources need to be to get that shored up. And we do these other things. Now, at the same time, sleep and stress and nutrition and exercise do play a role in that. So you naturally get into that stuff. But and then peptides like tesamorelin can be very good for lipid metabolism and improving your ApoB. And I have that issue, and I've tested my blood for 12 years with different things. I went stripped my diet all the way to vegetarian, re-engineered it for my cardiovascular panel, and then started using various compounds. And now I keep my ApoB, 60 or right around that 60 mark, and it's something in my family. So you can't, like, to me, I don't like sensationalism. I don't like, the industry is blowing up. It's in a bull run right now. It's like we talk about those boom cycles. Yep. It is right now. I could be raking it in, and I'm like, no, like I don't want to take advantage of just of people's health because peptides are in a bull run, or some other thing. Like, it's actually a time to get back to more basics and fundamentals, well-rounded, rather than leaning into all this sensationalism. I've been a little bit disheartened by all of it, and it turned me off a little bit, but it strengthened my approach. And so, I have guys I had a guy in his mid-50s call me up, and he's a good friend of mine, and I tried to help him for a long time. You only can help people when they're ready. And he was mid-50s, looked like a walrus. He that's his words, not mine. He sent me, he's like, dude, I'm in a state of emergency. And he was ready. And man, he sent me a photo not that long ago, and he compared the two. Stud. He's got abs now. He looks chiseled. Stud. I was like, and he's like, dude, you saved my life. You saved my life. And my sister and her husband, they were obese. My sister's husband was a quintessential couch potato. I mean, he was massive. And they finally decided, I got them on a GLP. We started with tirzepatide, and then we switched them eventually once they got to retatrutide. And then I got them working out, they got a sauna. They consistently work out there. I just was at their house for Mother's Day with my mom and them. They eat like they've redone their diet. They live by it, and they look amazing. And they just lit up. And our relationship it could not be better. And I'm like, when people have better health, they're better people. Like they're not annoyed by so many things, and they're so pleasant to be around. It's just, so for me, I like the idea of scale for certain parts of business to help people, but I love the personal aspect of helping people. So that's kind of my business,
So let's say someone's already done their due diligence. They have all their background work done, relatively healthy, all those kind of cool things. Since you're big in the exome world, what are your general recommendations then for that person who's optimized, healthy, good to go, basics done, covered, grounding, nutrition, like stress is good, everything's good? What do you generally tend to say with those exosomes? And then specifically, we're talking about MSC placental derived, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I'm partial to those just because there's other products now, RPA, there's cell factors, there's other things. And if you want to look at maybe even why those exist. So one, traditional exosomes have to be shipped frozen. It's a logistical nuisance. But you live in America. It's totally doable. Like, it's not like, we're in some place where it's like you can't have exosomes shipped on dry ice and it stay frozen. So I don't really worry about that. The second thing is, you also have to know that this is part of a regulation bypass, right? They're trying to get around regulation. Let's just take the guts and let's use those because they'll still work. And they do. I mean, I've experimented with these things, but here's the thing I don't think a lot of people realize about the exosome. The exosome is like an encrypted packet of information. The microRNAs, like for example, in them, are these orchestrators of the epigenetics. So we don't want just raw material and signal, which will still work. But the orchestration, I think, is where the magic is. Imagine if you went to see a symphony and the conductor just went like this. And every single instrument played at the same volume, same intensity, the entire orchestra. This is what this microRNA is like constantly. It's the pre-built, enclosed encryption packet that says, no. Dial this up, but not that much. Bring this inflammation down. Turn these inflammation. So it is modulating the epigenetic, RNA to protein building of signaling. It's orchestrating that, and it's hard to beat nature, right? And I like that component because, and in some ways you can orchestrate yourself. Like I have found that, I've been a part of over 1,000 exosome treatments, in the stuff that I do. Well over that now. And I have found that the people that get the best results have good sleep and they exercise. It's that simple. And so they probably get enough protein. They probably get, but most of the time the people that get really, that don't get a response, where they're like, well, I didn't really know. So I was like, how's your sleep? Oh, my sleep is terrible. I should really do. Like, well, yeah, you really should do something about that. Where do you think your body actually regenerates? Where do you think, you're not getting any deep sleep probably. And the people that exercise, why do they get a good response? They're adaptive. They adapt to their environment. Exercise is the body getting a signal from the environment saying, we need to adapt. The environment is challenging us. So you throw a signal in there and all of a sudden the body responds to it. So that's the way I view these things, and that's why I'm a little partial to the exosomes. I've made great relationships with vendors. I've tested a lot of these things. I'm now going and having them actually looked under, to see what the true counts are. And I do think there's an elegance there that I appreciate. That if you want stuff to be relayered, like to be regrown, do you want it to have integrity without fibrosis? Do you just want a signal that just says, anabolically, just grow it, or do you want there to be some integrity in that, some orchestration? So I like that. Having said that, I've gotten good responses from other things. Just for the same way peptides will give you a response, right? I mean, but they're almost like I'm adding tubas, I'm adding violins. They're a little bit more discreet, right, in terms of what they'll do. So you can kind of say, we need more tubas, we need more violins in this orchestration. That's the way I view it. But I'm a big fan of them. I would say just about anybody could do a quarterly dosing protocol. I will say this. I think most people owe it to themselves to do 3 treatments quarterly. Try 3, because you might get an amazing response out of the first one, but if you do 3 separated by 3 months, that will raise your regenerative capacity, the floor, by a year. You'll have 1 year of regenerative upgraded potential. Tell me if things don't start disappearing that were bothering you. Tell me if I'll be honest with you. When I started using it, because we're getting into 4 years that I've been doing quarterly treatments. I completely healed a shoulder injury that I had that was bothering me for years. It's gone. And then I was like, everything just that I had that was, it's all gone. I literally would be walking and I would stop and I'd be like, this is unbelievable. And I'm going to be even more honest. I'm going to go all the way. It actually kind of messed me up, because I sort of said, everything else is pointless. It's all, I was like, it's all like, this is so good that I was like, it almost threw me off of a lot of the other stuff, because I had so much intimate experience with it,
I actually had not a good amount of people, we'll say maybe 5%, right? Which isn't a ton of people. But certain people are just not that good of responders to traditional peptides, even HRTs, like just enough to make them feel normal, but cell therapies, And it's also interesting because I've seen people respond not so much like from my perspective. It's interesting because I've seen healing rates of torn muscles, broken bones, TBIs, everything from all the major cell healing therapies. And I'm seeing more based on the individual in their response biologically, right? So it's like you find that particular one, but then for those people that only hyper respond to those cell therapies, I tell these people, save your money on, I love peptides. I love them. I have all these tools, right? But if you're seeing clear signs that, hey, you're a better responder to this, save all your money on peptides for the month and put that all into exosomes or into stem cells or into whatever you respond biologically best to. It's also interesting, too, if we kind of almost have to divide them because there's so many now. I feel like, hit my microphone there. I feel like if you look at like any of the exomes or stem cells that are more like hematopoietic or natural killer cell or like the dendritic loaded, like those are more like immune system, different cancers, like those are in a different category. But like we'll say the traditional Muse stem cells or SMS cells or MSC placental exosomes or all those like the basic ones, I've seen them all do the same amount of healing, but it changes from person to person. Particularly for me, like stem cells, I don't get a ton out of them in general. I did respond well to SMS cells, but that was a lower dose, and those are kind of newer. But traditional MSC placental exosomes, I'm the same as you. I respond so well to those. And actually cell factors, I'm a hyper responder to those as well. But I do like the beauty of how an exosome from a vesicular aspect does work in the microRNA donation and the communication that goes on there. It's super cool and super elegant. But I agree. I'm 1,000%. I think if someone responds well to that and not to other things, as much as you'd like to take BPC like everyone else, if you don't respond well to it, save that money and just put it towards your exosomes.
Totally. I completely agree. I've told people, look, you know, you think peptides are cheaper, but what you're doing is you're still spending like a lot of money when you add it up. I just like, and this is gonna blow on it, like the whole Wolverine stack. You know, it's not that that isn't great. You know, I like it for maybe micro trauma, like you know when you exercise a lot, like you know you get micro trauma and take a piece of paper and do a little tiny tear in it, and then just tug on it. There's a good chance that thing might rip, right? So like for me, I like it for smaller, you know, like. But then I'm like, this is gonna blow that out of the water. Like it is so much more than that in terms of healing and regeneration. I mean, we have seen people with Parkinson's come in a wheelchair, and the wife is like, whenever he gets his exosome treatment, his balance, his walking, his brain, everything functions better. We've had people that are massively inflamed because sometimes you see these. You know, people that are really good, like you or me, or like they're really like doing things really well. They get good response. But then you'll see these people that are, as Jay Campbell would say, metabolic dumpster fires, or whatever. And I don't like saying that, but you know, like whatever. But they know they're metabolically and like really inflamed, and they get huge relief. I mean, I have a client that has become a business coach of mine. She was a client, and she was running around going, "These are amazing." You know, like she got so much instant relief because these exosomes just shut down all of that inflammatory cascade. And if you think of inflammation, it's just traffic. It's traffic. You can't get resources in and out of a city if it's gridlocked with traffic. So you clear some of that inflammation, and then now these other things have room to actually do their job. And so you'll sometimes see these two types of demographics that do really well. It's the people in the middle that are like sleep terrible, but they're kind of, you know, they don't have any major stuff and they don't never work out. Maybe they're abusing a GLP, right? So they're not even getting it. They're not hydrated. They're not getting a protein, or they're kind of in that sort of zone where their body just doesn't adapt. It doesn't adapt. They're starved, they're sleep deprived, they're stressed, they're probably in a sympathetic tone all the time. They never work out. So those are the people that really, you got to work on the fundamentals. Look, and this will be your cherry on top. You know, like I don't want to waste your money. But the peptide stuff, I think people have crossed this thing in their mind like, oh, they're just worth it because they're like this panacea. And it's like, I don't think so. Like it depends what you have. Again, there's, you know, if you have, you know, autoimmune stuff. I mean, I think thymosin alpha 1 can be amazing. All the thymic peptides can be amazing for that stuff. There's so many discrete uses for peptides that are amazing. I'm a big fan of using copper peptide at the same time I do my exosomes. I love that combination. It's just magic, But I love the exosomes, and we've seen, and we looked at, the research on exosomes versus stem cells, and you get 85 to 95% of what you get from a stem cell, you get from an exosome. And you've probably seen this study where most of the benefits you get from a stem cell are coming from the release of exosomes within those stem cells. I don't know 100% if that, I think one of the cool things of stem cells is that they can differentiate potentially. So you don't get that from an exosome. You get growth and you get regeneration. So as long as the tissue is alive and it's, you can regenerate it. But if I had a heart attack and part of my heart tissue had died, well, I would use my frozen stem cells that I've got from bone marrow a long time ago, because I would want that differentiation and maybe see if it could, replace that dead tissue. I don't know if that could happen, but that I would lean more on the stem cells for things like that. But you can spend a lot of money on stem cells. I mean, and the thing that, look, when you send in a signal and you go, I'm going to go to South America and I'm going to do this stem cell treatment and it's going to fix everything. Well, you're asking a lot of your body in one treatment to just miraculously be able to assimilate and orchestrate and do all that healing in one treatment. Calm down. Let's just pulse it. Let's pulse it. Let's raise our floor over time. You might be the kind of person that needs a full year of regeneration to get the actual true healing. You may not be. You might be somebody that responds in 3 months after the first treatment. But that consistent pulsing, I think, will allow you to save money on peptides, keep you a 10-minute treatment on a very good, tested, really good exosome, I think is what I've stuck with. I'm 52 and I like, it's given, my thing, I want to be a gymnast forever. So.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. If you can afford it, if you're in the right position, I think everyone could do a cell therapy, depending on what is their preferred one they respond best to once a quarter. I think that's pretty good advice in general. I thought you were going to take that explanation in a different direction, though. I thought you were going to say the traveling. I've always found, and there's nothing wrong with traveling to get these treatments done. The problem is you have the trauma of traveling. The radiation exposure of all the different electromagnetic fields in the airport. You have the cabin pressure, you have the change in elevation. As you leave the ground, less electron donation, more cosmic radiation. Like, you have all these things going on. You land, you get the treatments done the next day, then you go home 2 days later.
Yeah.
I've always seen that cause less healing than if someone could go, and this is the worst case scenario, honestly, but a full week there, therapy done, and stay a full week. So that's 15 days. That's a long time to travel somewhere, but if you look at what you do pre-op, determines how you recover post-op. So I've been a big fan of these people that'll be able to send it to your house. You can do it yourself, have a traveling nurse come to the house, give it to you IV, because then you can do your own pre-op protocol. You mentioned about doing GHKCU. The stem cell donation from red bone marrow from GHKCU is amazing. So you release, it's that CXCR4 STF1 cascade. You push so much stem cells into circulation, then you hit them with exosomes. That's why that combination works so well, right?
Yeah.
So if you could do that for a week beforehand, exomes that day, maybe ground beforehand to get the static electricity off your body so things can communicate, then do the post-op procedure. You could even maybe forgo the post-op, right? But the pre-op is so important before that.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do after you do a treatment is then hop on a plane the next day or that same day. And I get it. I think traveling, getting it done is better than nothing. But if you're trying to get the most out of it, because these things are expensive. I know you've heard some of the prices where you're talking 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100
that's
grand.
absurd. Yeah.
It's a lot. And a lot of those prices probably aren't priced accurately, saying that nicely. But if you do these in a different scenario, it's just you'd save money and you'd also have better results.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I've done, even just anecdotally, so many of my, like, I've done my treatment during A4M, which I don't know if you've ever been in that exhibit hall. It is, I'll never forget looking at, what's his name, Ryan Smith from True Diagnostic.
Yeah, yeah.
He was behind his booth, and I'm looking at him talking, and I thought, this guy looks like he's on cocaine or methamphetamine, like literally, and you're like, you look at everyone in the hall, and you're like, oh my God, there's so much. People are erratic, and you feel it. Like I now when I'm at A4M, I have to step in and out. I like track it. I'm like, it is. And I've done my exosome treatment during that time, and I've always been like, I feel like I get the least response from being in this massive EMF, massive tone exposure. Like, it's overkill. It's like, it's just too much. So I think there's things you can do at the event. Like we're, kind of now I'm looking at this event we might do in Austin with some people, like, to have like a sound lounge. Those people all live there, but I think events at places, but yes, sending these things to people, having a nurse practitioner come out is the bridge that I'm really working on now, because it's like it reduces the cost even more. I don't, you should be able to just have a concierge person come to your house, give you a 10-minute treatment, and then boom, it's done. And I think that's the future. And it's all about compliance and finances. And these people, these clinics, they just way overcharge. I mean, I'm always 50% below whatever. Some of these guys are just, they know it's a bull market. They know and they just take advantage of it. And whenever something becomes hyped, it's just not hype to me. I've been doing it for 4 years. So to me, I'm like, no, just calm down. Like, you don't need to go pay that much money for it, But in the beginning, I used to call these companies that were offering like Next Health and all that. Tell me about your exomes. Tell me about your treatment. Tell me about and they couldn't answer anything. And I'm like, they don't know nothing about this stuff, And, but I do think if you look at, because I have intel on through various, relationships on like a company that will have 750 doctors using their product. And so if you look at most protocols, hair, ED, soft tissue, you look at all this stuff, it's 3 treatments spread 2 to 3 months apart. So because when I was telling them, I was like, guys, this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that if you just do more of a, quarterly dose, and they're like, yeah, that's what everyone is, seeing. And that's why all treatments have that. That's why you don't just go in for hair restoration and do one treatment and leave, But, I think the hair is the perfect litmus test for if a product really works. So if you because hair is you think you got a good exosome, or you think you got to try injecting into your, and I've documented mine and all that stuff. And the products that grow hair, I think, are good products.
I mean, seriously, it's libido and hair. Because if you have biological stressors down, then you want to procreate, and hair's not turning gray, hair's not falling out, things are balanced. Things have that polarity, right? So I agree. Yeah. I think that it's a good proxy, and that's where, all of my clients, I don't care who they are, everyone sends me progress pictures. Beyond the feedback and blood work and things like that, because you can tell so much by looking at a physique. Everyone gets asked every week at check-in time, what's your libido like? Because the libido and the hair can really tell you a lot. Again, I'm probably the wrong person to talk about this because I'm a hyper responder to exosomes and cell factors and things like this. But literally minutes after I take exosomes, I literally feel like I slept for days. Yeah. If I do it once per quarter and keep up with that, or something similar, of course I can get away with longer, but if I keep to that schedule, I just thrive. And I actually checked last night, because I thought we were talking about exosomes on this podcast, actually. That was the one thing I was like, we'll probably get to that eventually. And it was over 657 people that have done these quarterly exosome or cell therapy treatments that I've worked with personally over the past whatever amount of time. I forget the duration of time. Yeah. And those people that got it consistently got better results than people that did one bolus once per year, or one bolus every 2 years, or even one bolus every 2 times per year, once per quarter. And that makes sense, because no matter what way you slice it, you're getting so much wear and tear just being alive in the society, on top of look at how much everyone has to work these days. How much stress there is with finances and everything. So I do think that once a quarter, and whatever the dose is for you. For me, that could be 12 billion exosomes. For someone else, that could be 100 billion. The dosage depends. Even the product changes person to person. But I think once a quarter, if you can afford it, I would really and tell people to invest in that and go through like a year and just every quarter try one of the new cell therapies and look back which one gave you the best one, and then you pick that product, say it's exosomes because we're talking about those, and say you only did whatever 12 billion, then try a 50 billion or a 75 or 100 and see which one you respond best to. Right? Because at a certain point, more isn't always better. Like if I took 100 billion, I wouldn't get anything extra, so I don't want to waste the money because I get so much out of 12. Yeah,
and I have some opinions on that because I've tried so many different strategies, and I would say, you know, with the quarterly thing, even if you just commit to 3, then you could take a break. Like do 3, and then you might be good for, you know, 9 months, and then you start feeling that like, oh, the wear and tear is coming back. Like, let me do another round. You know, I'm not suggesting you have to live on these things. I just personally like to be optimal, and I think it works well for me. But I do think the 3 doses is good. I would kind of say when you do 3, like if you think you try to get a good product, obviously always, or go get from someone that you think they know what they're talking. You're like, I will tell you this. Let me just say this. Every exosome company is going to talk garbage about every other exosome companies. You cannot listen to the exosome company. All they're going to do is talk trash about the other exosome companies and why theirs is better. So same with red light company. Ours are the most powerful. It's like, dude, enough. You know, just it's absurd. So you gotta go with people that have used them and have seen stuff. But I would almost recommend sticking with a same product, because what happens is if you go with one and you start the process and then you throw another one in, and then you're not going to necessarily know, wait, which one was this one still working? Because you're getting a tail. So you get a honeymoon effect. I call it the honeymoon effect. So 1 to 3 days, you get the, oh man, I feel perfect, you know. So not everyone gets that. And then you get the long-tailed healing upgrade that's like watching your fingernails grow. You know, if I told you watch your fingernails grow all day, and then I called you at the end of the day and I said, did your fingernails grow? You'd be like, no. But I said, I'm going to call you in 3 weeks. And you're like, yeah, my fingernails grew. That's exosomes. That's peptides are like that too, right? So for some of them, the healing stuff. But you know, but then experiment, try other things. And then the other thing is within that 3, I like to sometimes recommend it. I have to also be compassionate to people's finances. Always. I always want to give them, I never want to try to sell them on something that's pushing their finances ever. But if you can do one of those 3 treatments as a big one, and I was like you, I was like, I don't need it, dude. I fixed my shoulder on 12.5. Then I went to 25, and I was like, oh, this is where I'm going to stick at. The 25, perfect. And I was like, great. And then my provider was like, you really owe it to yourself to try a big one. He's like, I'm just going to send it to you. And he sent me a 75 billion. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I get it. It like all the little things went away, you know, like, and I was like, oh, and he said, look, just do one big one and then do 2 little ones, or do, you know, another strategy a lot of the insiders are doing is small, big, small, big, small, big, small, big. So you just want to keep, you know, you'll maybe do a big one and then you just keep that process going with the small one. So, you know, you can, you know, put one of them in there, and it doesn't have to be a massive one, you know, but, you know, just throw in one a little bit larger to maybe get that thing really going, and then use the other ones to keep it going. Again, though, but you're probably, if you're already like, dude, I'm pretty good. I mean, my body's there. Then okay, then it, you know, you don't necessarily need that. But so it's an art. Let's just put it that way. It's an art, and I do think ultimately you will land on quarterly treatments of 3 blocks at least, if not indefinitely off and on. And I do believe you will realize at some point that throwing a big one in there every now and then does give you an extra edge. And I do believe that you will experiment with all the different ones, and you will find some ones that definitely do not work as well for you, and you will find some ones that really do well for you. You just have to remember, was I at the A4M medical conference standing in that tech hall or the thing hall all weekend and it didn't work for me, or was I really doing good stuff, you know? And then rounding out that protocol, like you said, the GHK, or I was using stem regen for a while, and the guy who created that was a client. And so I've done all the top guys, like all of them. I won't name names, but all the names you know of, I've done. So, but I said, he's like, this is very synergistic with my product. And I said, give me the exosome protocol. He said, 2 pills in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 2 in the evening. And one bottle will last you 10 days. So I start that process days before, and that way the exosome is in it, and then I have a few days afterwards. And I kind of can't divorce myself of using that product because it completely fixed my shoulder on a very low dose of exosomes. And I mean, gone. Something that was bothering me, that it was kind of depressing me a little bit. That's kind of the way I view all these things, you know. I love them.
Dude, I love the stem cell supplement product to get your own endogenous release.
Yeah.
Like I think out of all, if I had to pick not one product but one ingredient, I really feel like a Phanazonion Flossequia. That's the one I keep coming back to in terms of it's in one product but not another, or if it's dosed it this way, not that way, and all the research that I've seen, that's the one ingredient where I'm like, that's kind of like my go-to. If it's in there, I get such a massive response. And there's
what product are you using to get that?
So Stem Regen has it. I know from Gut Institute they have a product. I just talked with Chris Gethin the other day. They have a stem cell product coming out. I believe one of the algae is in there. I think most of them actually. I think it's probably 50% on the market. If it's a stem cell product, it should be AFA, so Phanazonion Flossequia. That's probably one of my preferred algae. I mean, you feel it. You feel a huge difference. And it's fun to say.
I haven't learned to say it yet, but I know that it's funny to watch, like something will catch fire and then there's all these derivatives of it and everyone jumps on the market. Stem Regen was kind of there, I think, early, and then you had even Qualia came out with their version of it. And I like what's his name? I forget his name, but he's an awesome guy. I mean, I think he's a good formulator, and I love talking to him. He's been a client as well. But we a lot of times they'll send us product to hand out at our events and things like that. But yeah, adding that stem cell component just seems to because there was a lot of talk last year and even the year before about exosomes and your own endogenous stem cells and how there's even one of the guys I work with is they're saying that they can take your stem cells, because I've had mine frozen. He's like, send them to me. We'll feed them exosomes. We'll multiply them, and then you just have them. You can just be using your own stem cells along with the exosomes. And so I'm going to be dipping my toe into that and just to see what that does. I'm just keeping an open mind about it, and I have mine frozen, and they're just sitting there. And if they can be, done the right way, where I can use them, then shoot, I don't know. I mean, it's my own stem cells, I don't have to worry about it.
I like that. So, okay, before we kind of wrap up here, with that specific leg of your business, because you do multiple things, where is it in terms of at what point in the future can people go to stevemccain.com or whatever the website is, right? And then go ahead and have a provider sent to their house for exosome treatment XYZ. Like, what does that look like? I'm sure it's kind of not specific, but roughly what does it look like?
Yeah, we are very, very close. So it's already happening, but it's the problem is someone will, hey, I live in Boise, so it's one of these things where there's networks you can tap into, and I have all the lists of all that stuff. That stuff will be integrated eventually, but for now, what I do is hand select somebody, find them, and then and you can find them. They're not difficult. I mean, I have even an AI that searches LinkedIn with a certain criteria that gives me a list and all this stuff. And so, but and I certainly don't mind doing that for people, building it, one off as it's, because that's the way I've done everything. You got to roll up your sleeves. You just got to take care of one person at a time, and then the SOPs start becoming apparent, and then you build frameworks and systems around those SOPs so that you can do it more at scale. And it's something that I have a big interest in. So if anyone reaches out to me, even if you just reach out to my personal email. I've had to go through a rebranding because I had a brand, and there's a competitor that sort of uses some similar. So now I got to do this rebranding. So that's why the website isn't ready yet, because I don't want to build on an old architecture. People get used to it, the name. But if they just reach out to Stephen with a PH at Stephen with a PH, McCain.com, and they just say, hey, I listen to that podcast and I like what you said, and I'm totally interested in, I will build a bridge. I will build that bridge to them. Obviously, it's easier for me to do it in pockets where, New York guys and Austin guys and, LA and, Vegas. But I will certainly, I don't care where you're from, I will build that bridge to you, because I just think you owe it to yourself to try these, and that's the world we live in right now. And we all want to be, if anyone's listening to this, they're already on a actualized tier of existence, right? They're getting quality information, and I think if you haven't tried these products, man, the stuff I've seen is just I love it, and I've really, I can tell you how many exosome presentations from different companies I've sat through and due diligence. We've tried trophoblastic stuff. We've tried, a lot of different kinds. And I always go back to the ones that I'm like, and I have some, some people that are like you and I, that are like, they do everything, like the Dave Pascos of the world. And these people are like, and, you start seeing like what gets really good response, and you see why, and you learn more about it. But happy to build that bridge. And it's not a complicated thing at all. It's just a matter of making sure that I provide the trust factor, white glove experience, and its quality. Like I want someone to feel like, and they have someone that they can contact that, they feel very comfortable, and that I have their best interest in mind. And I look at everything I do. I don't do anything. I don't recommend stuff that I wouldn't do. So I think I've made that explicitly clear that, this is to me, it's just important that this stuff is democratized. I'm a non-doctor, and but yet I can tell you how many. I'm sure you have this all the time. Doctors call you and they ask that, and partnering with them and realizing, oh, I don't have to be a doctor. I can partner with them, and I can borrow that authority with them and provide good services. Because for a while it disheartened me that I was like, God, I really can't wield stuff the way I really want to. And it's like, yeah, you can. Why are you limiting yourself? Like, doctors, you work with them all the time. You're a business guy, like just and so that's the way I go about it.
I love it, dude. Okay, and then finally, one last thing, right?
Yeah.
The private site, the private group, you said you delayed it for a while. Timeline on that, and what can people kind of expect to find there?
So that is very soon. It will be, we're like any day now, but it's I've for that particular branding, it's FitSpan, because that's my brand. Like I liked that thing. People talk about longevity, then it became health span, and I'm like, well, health span is nice, but that's just the absence of disease. What about fit span? Like, how long can you be physically fit? Like, how long can we be active and kicking ass and feeling great? And so that's what I'm hanging my hat on. That'll be the community. It'll be fitspan.com. It started with FitSpan Longevity because it was a trademark thing, and then I finally acquired everything. The trademarking is good. I have fitspan.com, and so I think now someone can go to FitSpan Longevity. There's a landing page for it, but it's going to be FitSpan, and within there it'll be all my frameworks, all the stuff that I do, my approach, my philosophy. And I think, I guess if I had to say what I have to offer, I've been in the space a long time, but it's seeing the difference between the trees and the forest, recognizing this is a sensationalized sort of way to do things. This is really like these are the things that are going to, like, I think, be the biggest things for you in the long run, and not shying away from the awesome products that are vetted, tested, and have a lot of experience with. And Yeah, I'm really excited about it. You know, I've seen your community grow, and I get in there and I look at what you provide, and I'm, you know, I was going to start a community when Circle first came out, and, you know, and I didn't because I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I like to, I wanted to really feel like it was the right time, but I think now in the age of AI, I think that community is more important than it's ever been because people need that human interaction. They need human leadership. They need that connection. They need someone to help, you know, sift all the noise and guide them onto like, no, just keep it like this. Keep it like this. You know, let's take it this order. And I've dove into so many topics. I mean, we could have gone into VO2 max to anything, you know, and you look at it and you're like, if I don't do this, I'm robbing people of an opportunity to, you know, because I'm already talking about it. I get so many calls. I everywhere I go, I love this stuff. So why not just formalize it? And so, yeah, it's coming. If you're interested, again, you can just email me at Stephen with a PH at Stephen with PH McCain.com, and then I'll put you on the list, and then I'll let you know when it launches and that. So, yeah, man, man, what an honor to be able to spend some time with you. I just love it. I can't wait till we're in the same room again.
Dude, this was an absolute blast. And everyone, by the way, links, emails, all that stuff will be down in the description box below, so you don't have to remember anything. Dude, it was amazing getting to talk. And yeah, I'm not sure when we're going to hang out next in person, but definitely going to make that happen soon because FOH was so much fun together. And then this is just a blast. So thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. And anytime, anywhere, you know, you just let me know if you got anything going on. I would love to just be there, you know. I mean, it's again, like I said, more than ever, I think it's important to get on that airplane. Like, don't wait for your. I'm gonna just leave with this last piece of advice. That little midlife crisis thing I talked about, and recognizing mortality, and you know, and me and my buddy were gonna go. He was in Japan back when this was kind of happening to me, and I said, listen, I love Tokyo. Stay there. I'll come out and we'll hang out for like a week in Tokyo. And he's like, well, no. And I said, listen to me. I said, do you remember the 2004 Olympic tour where we were touring all these cities? I said, was that the greatest time in your life? He said, yeah. I said, me too. I said, that was 20 years ago, dude. I said, in 20 years, I'm going to be in my 70s. I said, I'm not waiting. Get on the airplane. Go. Live your life. So I plan on breaking records, helping people break records in terms of how long we can live. But I will live my life like I'm done at 80. And I don't mean I'll be done at 80. I mean, if there's something pre-programmed in us where that's it. It's just, you know, this is where I am not waiting anymore. Like, that's it. So if you have something going on, you let me know. I'll get on that airplane.
End of June, the Biohacking Conference in New York. I know I'll be there for sure, and I may or may not be speaking. I'm not sure.
Oh, fantastic.
Find out later this week. So if you're free.
That would be great. Yeah, I'll get the dates from you. That would be amazing.
Amazing. Awesome, dude. Okay, guys, on that note, we will call it, but I do like ending on that note. Stop waiting. Just stop waiting and seeing life pass you by. Go out and live it. And that's what, as much so we all love our longevity goals, I'll have pizza on the weekend with the kids. Like, I don't care. We're at a birthday party, I'll have some cake. Like, I want to live my life to the fullest, and I don't see that impeding my longevity or my fit span goals or anything like that. I really don't. You know, you got to live life to the fullest. And it's cool to end on that note. So, again, links down in the description box below, everyone. See you next time.
Yep. See ya.